Thank you.
Thank you.
I just hit mine. Hi, how are you? Budget cuts.
I think they put it out.
Here, but I didn't know it was getting this bad.
They can catch you out of nowhere.
We sold it at a garage sale, huh?
$20, we needed it.
I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for December 7th, 2021. If we could start with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Here.
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 Here. I'd like to make a motion to excuse Councilmember Moon from the meeting.
So moved.
Second. Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll for us?
Yes.
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 Great. The first thing we're going to start with this evening is a recognition. Preble County Sheriff's Office Captain Shane Hatfield and Detective Andrew Foyer. I knew I was going to mess that up.
We're going to give a presentation to Preble County for all the help during a very difficult case that made national news. It was a group effort, and we had some great outcome of this for prosecution purposes. This hit everybody extremely hard, but we'd just like to present Preble County with several, basically just for their help and appreciation for all their efforts.
So I'm going to read this letter from Chief Burke. Dear Detective Foyer, on behalf of the Middletown Division of Police and the Middletown Investigations Unit, we would like to thank your agency and the officers assigned to the Brittany Gosney and James Hamilton case. Detective Andrew Foyer and Captain Shane Hatfield played an instrumental role in getting convictions on both individuals. Detective Andrew Foyer assisted us in becoming immediately available to respond to the area of Rush Run Nature Area to check for evidence. He followed up on leads and tips in the Preble County area. He checked surrounding residences near the park for surveillance cameras and acted as a point of contact for exchanging information between the two agencies. Detective Foyer led the coordination between the Preble County Sheriff's Office and Hamilton County Police Association Underwater Search and Rescue Team. Detective McIntosh and Hoover were very appreciative of the time and work he contributed to the case to help secure these convictions. We are also very appreciative of Captain Shane Hatfield taking the lead on searching for James Hutchison's body. He coordinated with the dive teams, search teams, and us, continually informing us of any case developments. We appreciate all of your department and officers' assistance and would like to say thank you.
And for the sheriff, just so you can always remember, we actually got you a framed photo of, that you guys could place at the department somewhere.
We will hang that up, and we remember him to this day. So
Thank you guys so much.
great to see coordination between our communities and leading to successful law enforcement efforts. So thank you guys again so much for that. This evening we have 2 public hearings. So we're going to start with the first one. It is a text amendment case number 2-21 of the Middletown Development Code. I'm happy to read this part, but you end up saying it anyway, I think, so I'll save my breath. Keep people from hearing it twice.
Good evening. This is text amendment case 2-21. It's a consideration of text amendments to the Middletown Development Code pertaining to Chapter 1226, review authority and procedures. The Planning Commission's recommendation has been forwarded to Council for final review and decision. Is there more?
I think that's the only slide for this.
Okay.
There were more slides. Okay, go past this slide. No.
Okay, there we go. So the request from staff is to consider text amendments to the Middletown Development Code pertaining to Chapter 1226. Planning Commission has recommended denial of this request to Council, but Council is the deciding body on this. They make the final decision. Chapter 1226.10 talks about variances and the use variance process. So the request here is it's not that complicated. There's 2 different basic categories of variances in zoning. There's what's called an area variance, which is anytime you need an exception from a setback or a height requirement, something having to do with how you want to develop the property. Use variances go towards the use of the property. So this is a use that's not permitted in this district, but I still want to be able to use my property for that purpose. The way the code is currently set up, both of those variances go to the BZA for consideration. There are 2 different sets of standards in the development code that are applied. Everything that's in the code currently, there's nothing legally wrong with any of it, but staff believes that it would be a best practice, and a lot of communities believe it's best practice for there not to be allowed use variances within a zoning code. And I think I'll get to that in a second. The reason for that, there's really 2 reasons for that. One is use variances are generally viewed pretty skeptically by a court. You have what's basically an administrative body making effectively a legislative policy decision. Your zoning code really, there's a lot of thought and planning that goes into the zoning code. The zoning code is adopted by recommendation from Planning Commission and then City Council. So it's a little bit odd to have a use decision go to a different body to make that, to give an exception to that. The other reason is because there are also, courts legally don't like these. The standard that's supposed to be applied to use variances is what's called as unnecessary hardship. It basically means that you don't have any way to practically, to use your property under the current zoning. As a reality, it's a really, really high standard to hit, to actually hit in a legally defensible way. And so, a lot of communities have ended up in litigation that they didn't necessarily want if their BZA maybe was a little too generous in granting a use variance. My understanding is in 2018, staff removed what were called use adjustments from the code for the same reason. I don't know why use variances are in now, but they are. And so we are asking that use variances be removed. Planning Commission was concerned about this. They felt like it might have too high of a bar for property owners who want to develop their property, that forcing them to go through the 2-step process of Planning Commission and then Council to get their property rezoned might be too burdensome. But there is that alternative avenue. That is my understanding of the gist of their recommendation of denial. Okay. So this is a highlighted section of what would be lined out. Those are the pieces that are specific to use variances. Planning Commission has reviewed and made its recommendation. Council.
Next slide.
Yeah. This is the text amendment review criteria for council. You're welcome to look at it. I think this one is really a policy decision for council in terms of what you do and don't want to do with it. I'm happy to answer any questions. It does take a majority of council to overturn Planning Commission's recommendation on this.
I guess you talk about legal action. Have we ever experienced any legal action with regards to use variance here in the city? Just the permissibility of it.
I don't think that you have, at least not that I've been told. I do know a lot of other communities just have elected not to allow them. In fact, I've not surveyed all the communities in Ohio, but most of the ones that I've worked with have elected not to allow them.
And what's the path forward then otherwise? You go through the longer process, which, would it still be the 4 to 6 months? That's my only concern in terms of timing. These smaller, typically variances don't require as much as some of the larger zoning changes that I know can take 4 to 6 months. So is there a different process? Are there kind of different buckets we'll then look at so that we can still move at the speed of business?
No, I mean, my understanding, I think if we need to get into details, we can, but my understanding is that it would be your normal rezoning process. So it could be, 4 to 6 months. I think it's a planning commission and then council process. So it's still a two-step process.
And rezoning is more of a long-term permanent sort of solution as opposed to a use variance that has certain expiration dates.
Use variance does not have an expiration date typically. If you have a variance, you're typically given that. I mean, that variance is there. Now, I think we do have language in our code that talks about if property transfers hands, maybe there's some changes to that. It's intended to protect that. I've not seen that challenged one way or the other legally. So I don't know how that would hold up. Typically, for example, if you gave an area variance to somebody that said, we're going to give you we'll let you go within 5 feet of the property line instead of 10 feet of the property line, that variance stays with the property forever.
And I guess I'm curious, how many of these use variances do we see in a typical year? I mean, is this something that happens quite frequently or not very frequently, or?
I think it's pretty uncommon, but I don't know. Do you guys know?
In my experience in 2021, there were 3 that came through the BCA.
And were all of those approved?
Yes.
Can you, I'm sorry, can you speak to the examples of those, just so we can understand when this use variance is being enacted versus?
And I will be clear, I don't think this request was prompted by any of these cases, just for what that's worth. This is more of a policy question for council to think about.
We had 2 use variance cases that were brought before the BZA.
Can you come up just so that your voice can be caught on the mic?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We had 2 use variance cases on Central Avenue in a business district where both of those use variances were for requests to use the family or use the property either as a single family or multifamily home in what is zoned business district. The other use variance case that we heard this year was for a church that had been vacant. They applied for a use variance to use that building as an assembly hall and reception hall. And all 3 of those cases were approved by the BZA. And just a quick mention, as far as the use variance is concerned, it does have an expiration on it, but it's under a very specific case. Say, in the event of the reception hall, if they continue to use that building as an assembly hall in a continuous manner, then they can continue to use it under that use variance. If the property were to become vacant for more than 12 months, then that use variance will expire and the original zoning will take back over, and they would only be able to use it as the base zoning level.
So the BZA can approve these without them coming before the legislative
That's
body,
correct.
which is council. Okay.
That's correct. That's a
But I
decision
didn't
that's made by
remember
BZA.
any of these.
How long
Okay.
does that usually take, on average, if you go through the former use variance process?
Area and dimensional variances and use variances are the same timetable for the BZA. They have a meeting once a month, And as long as they have their application in by the deadline, which is 3 weeks before, then they're heard at the next month's meeting.
And approved at that meeting. So
Yes, pending them tabling it or asking for more information. But normally, they will deliberate and vote on it at that meeting.
It does kind of seem like a loophole around the intended use that is approved by council and then never heard from council. We don't have a say in the approval of a variance, right? Is that what I'm kind of hearing?
That's the skeptical view of it, for sure. And I think it's not an uncommon perspective on it. Most of the courts that have talked about these talk about it as though there's something about the property itself, that a justified use variance has something to do with the property itself that makes development impossible under the current uses that are permitted. It's not necessarily, just that this property owner wants to do this and they're not allowed. That really is what it's supposed to get at.
Is it possible to add into the process an approval of the legislative body, or is that
Typically
done?
not. No, so variances, whether use or area variances, live with the BZA. That's very common. It really is kind of an either or. Either you're going to allow them and the BZA is going to consider them, or you're not, and then it would follow the rezoning process if someone wanted to do something different with their property.
So is that essentially the intent of removing it from BZA, from their ability to grant that variance, to say if we want to grant some sort of variance on that property, that it has to be a change in zoning for an ultimate potential reuse of that property in that area? Is that why we're going down this road? I'm just curious.
If I can speak to this, because I'm quite certain it's probably here because of my my requesting it to be. I've spent a very long time in local government in 4 other states other than this, and in every city that I've ever worked, in every other state that I've ever worked, the very concept of use variance is specifically illegal. It's prohibited by law, and the common state of planning practice would suggest there is no such thing, because the nature of a variance is there is some aspect of the land that creates a hardship so that you can't meet the common requirements of your zoning district. But the use itself is the province of zoning, rezoning. And that also is always the province of the legislative body making that decision. So in this case, you're literally making the decision on the use of a property with a subset, a BZA, rather than the legislative body. And you're doing it through a process of variance that was never, ever intended to look at use. It's one thing for a variance to say, hey, this is a residential zone and it's still a residential proposal and the side yard setback is required to be 10 feet, but because of the nature of this odd lot, they can only have a 9-foot setback. We still think that maybe residential ought to happen here, but they can't meet the pure standard of that zone. That's a true variance. Or a variance, we want a fence here and it can't physically be put here, so we need a variance to it. But the idea of coming forward and saying basically, this zone calls for residential and I want to put commercial here, and rather than proposing it for rezoning and coming to the legislative body, I'm just going to go to the BZA and ask for a so-called use variance. And in fact, what you're asking for is a rezoning, because the very concept of changing the use, and it's a permanent change to the use, is to rezone the property. You're changing the very value, the entitlement, and everything that attaches to the land by making that very consequential decision. But you're doing it now through a process called variance. And in many, many courts, you're going to get into lots of trouble if you try to do that or get involved in that. So from my perspective and all the training that I've ever had in this sort of planning process is, there is no such thing as a lawful use variance. Just my opinion.
We did have that discussion. And I suspect that is where this request comes from. And, as I told you, Ohio has said that use variances can be legal. There's a really high threshold that I do think is hard for anyone to actually meet in a legally defensible way. So, and the reality is, as the decision-making body, if that decision regardless of who doesn't like that decision, whether that's the property owner or the neighbors, the city is stuck defending that suit, if there's a suit. And again, to your point, there hasn't been one that I know of, but you know, it is a risk. And so I think the combination of, you know, the legal risk combined with it doesn't make a lot of sense, because there is a lot of thought that goes into adoption of a zoning map and setting out the uses that are within the zoning code. Doesn't make a lot of sense to then put this decision on a totally separate body. So most of the communities I've worked with do not allow them. Some of the bigger cities do. Some go even crazier. You know, City of Cincinnati has a whole different process that I don't understand why it's legal still. I've looked at it numerous times. But most do not allow it, including most around here.
I guess I struggle with it. I think probably for the same reason that the Planning Commission struggled with it, because I tend to be pro small business and supporting the things that can push small businesses forward. And so I think it's just trying to understand why we would do that when it seems like the process is.
Well, I mean, one option, if the concern is about the 4 to 6 months on a rezoning, maybe there's a way to streamline that a little bit. I don't know, but that's definitely something that we could look at.
I mean, I guess I understand it wanting to come to city council, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to be able to have some sort of oversight or review of these variances, or the approval of these variances. If that's the case, I wonder if there's somewhere in the middle that we could end up. It's just always difficult to go against a commission's decision and to find the right place to do that.
Yep, I totally get it.
If I may, can I ask, what was the presentation to the Planning Commission? I mean, I don't know what they heard exactly. I didn't have a chance to be there, so I don't know.
I listened to it. It wasn't exactly this, but I think
Okay.
staff walked them through the proposed changes and solicited feedback, and explained to them, you know, kind of why this is out there and why we want to make the change.
So a variance is about 2 months, if we're talking about 3 weeks before, or is it you could get it done in a month? I'm just trying to look at what the delta is going to be between currently, if I wanted a variance versus, and I guess maybe understanding the difference between 4 months and 6 months in an effort to maybe figure out not a different process, full sum, but maybe a way through that gets us somewhere in the middle.
The timeframe for BZA variances at this point is, we have a cutoff for applications. Say, I'll give you December as an example. The first Wednesday of January will be the BZA meeting. And so this week on Wednesday is 3 weeks before that meeting. And so that is the cutoff for applications for the January meeting. If you were to miss that deadline and submit in the next 2 weeks, then you would be heard at the February meeting. And that's due to legal notice requirements. We have to send surrounding neighbor notices, and we have to publish notice of the meeting.
So you're looking at 3 to 7 weeks in that first process, depending on when you.
Depending on when you submit your application, if you make the deadline for the next month's meeting. Yes.
And then when we're looking at the zoning with 4 to 6 months, what's kind of the difference?
Are there 30 days to enactment after that?
Yes, not for the BZA variance.
Not for the
but
BZA.
For the
So
zone
that-
change.
sorry, that was my
one of
question
them.
before we moved on.
So you have legal notice requirements, you have to have the planning commission meeting, you have 30 days notice that has to be given before that. Then after the planning commission makes its decision and its recommendation to the planning, or to city council, another 30 days notice has to be given. And again, that is for notice requirements and legal ads to run. And so that stretches that time frame out. You have to have time for the application to come in, then we have to give at least 30 days notice, and then we have to have a planning commission meeting, and then the process repeats itself for the city council meeting.
Right.
And
We
so
have to
that
read it
ends up being
twice,
4 to 6
and then
months,
30.
depending on when the meetings fall and when the applications are received.
Understood. Thank you for laying that out.
And I can understand from, Mr. Palaniuk's perspective how that's the process zoning takes, and there's a reason why it takes that process, and we're creating a kind of a different process that doesn't go through the same vetting procedures. Any other comments or questions? So what,
I'm sorry, Mayor, comment, just, it does seem to, thanks for the additional insight on this. I don't know, I did attend the Planning Commission meeting as liaison when this matter was presented. And, yeah, I do understand the reasoning behind it in that we don't want to create, we put a lot of time and energy and thought into creating zoning districts, and we don't want to have a patchwork of variances throughout the city that would undermine the careful planning or what we think is careful planning that would go into it. So it's starting to make some additional sense, and maybe that would help Planning Commission support. But I guess it's too late for that now.
the way forward of this, is it going to appear as a first reading?
It's on tonight's agenda.
Is it on, did it get out at the end? Right, so it'll be the second reading to
21st.
21st, and, okay. Okay, with that being said, I guess we will open our public hearing, right? So we will open the public hearing. If there's anyone who has any comments in favor of text amendment case number 2-21, I welcome you to come up to the dais and state your name and address for the record and share your thoughts. We got somebody on the move. Marty.
This evening. Marty Kohler, 508 South Main Street. I actually am in support of this measure. Use variances are very frowned upon legally. I think Middletown's, the way we got here, started back in the 1960s, where they had a process called use adjustments. And I always brought that to the law department and said, hey, are these things legal? Well, they're not use variances, they're adjustments. But to me, they were the same thing. I believe that was created because we have fairly large areas of the city that were annexed from the township and developed without zoning, like Mayfield, like Amanda, Excella, Dixie Heights, where you have a real mixture of buildings, where you have residential, commercial, apartments, everything's all mixed together in the same neighborhood. Well, when we came in and zoned them, we gave blanket classifications with the thought that as these things go away, that they get redeveloped for whatever the new zoning district is. In fact, that doesn't particularly happen. We have commercial buildings that will sit vacant for a period of time. They're considered non-conforming uses. You can continue or change a non-conforming use if it's not vacant for more than 2 years. I believe it's 2 years in Middletown, or a year.
More than 12 months.
Oh, 12 months. A lot of times these buildings do sit vacant for more than 12 months, and then somebody wants to come in and establish a new business, and they're told, sorry, you're out of luck. That's when it went to the use adjustment process. You may consider a fallback for those situations where you have non-conforming buildings, non-conforming lots, where you give more leniency to that time period in exchange for doing a rezoning. The problem with rezoning those is also a legal issue, that if you rezone only one property completely surrounded by residential, that's considered spot zoning, which is also another frowned upon use or legal practice. So in short, I think what you're doing, or what's being proposed tonight, is correct. You may consider another tweak of the code to extend those non-conforming uses.
Can you clarify, because we got some double negatives going on in this whole thing with the recommendation is to deny the request for variances. So by speaking in favor of this, it would be saying to keep the use variances, correct?
Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah.
No, I'm in support of the amendment.
Okay. So I don't know, as far as the public hearing aspect goes, I guess that would be in opposition to the proposal then.
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure. I'm seeing a no. Susan's shaking her head yes. Okay, let's,
So staff, the proposal, the legislation before you is to overturn what Planning Commission has said.
to overturn. Okay, so it is to remove use variances.
Yes. So
Okay.
he is speaking in favor of the
He is
proposal that is.
speaking in
before
favor
the
of
body.
removing use variances.
Yes.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Do we have anyone else in favor of removing use variances who would like to come to the dais to speak this evening? Okay. Oh, we've got one.
Hi, my name's Matt King, 1515 First Avenue. So what's interesting is I was one of the two cases that was mentioned with regards to this, and some insight to this is there was a property on Central Avenue that was an old tax building that was 2 units that was sitting for quite some time, and I wanted to turn that into very high-end residential apartments, $1,250 to $1,500 a month spaces, non-Section 8, gated parking lot in the back. And what we had found is, obviously it was zoned a specific way, and speaking with BZA, the city's recommendation was not to do that. And the BZA voted in favor of that, which I was grateful for. But what was interesting is with the variance, you run into issues with financing for commercial buildings because it's a temporary, if you get it done, project in 12 months. And so unfortunately that project did not go through. So with regards to the text that's presented, as a business person and entrepreneur and someone that wants the best for Middletown and building high-end housing, which I think will help develop Central Avenue and the other parts of Middletown. The variance helped me to get it approved, but then obviously the bank would not lend on it because it was kind of temporary, and so they didn't want to hedge that bet. So you had to either go cash or a different way of financing. So that's a comment I was going to make. I'm not necessarily. I think that removing that would prevent me from even figuring out how to do something like that to make Middletown a better place, not necessarily to take advantage of the variance to build a fence or things like that, but looking at a specific piece of property and figuring out a way to bring it back to life and making it great. And currently that strip is B2, which is only first floor commercial, second floor residential. And so if you drive down that road, you'll see a lot of multifamilies that are sitting empty and things like that, because if you were, or one side's rented, but the other is not, and that doesn't count as 12 months vacant, it's the whole property. And so businesses aren't going to make that commitment, because in order to get in, it has to be, sitting for 12 months. So just some insight.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Any other comments in favor of removing use variances? Okay, with that, we'll open the floor for anyone in opposition to the removal. So anyone who wishes to keep use variances in place, if you would like to come up to the dais and speak now. Okay, I see no movement, so with that, we'll close the public hearing on text amendment case number 2-21, and we will open the next public hearing. This is preliminary development plan and zoning map amendment. Do we have anyone presenting this one this evening?
I believe there was a request communicated to council about potentially tabling this matter. So prior to opening the hearing, I don't know if council wants to consider that request.
Is there a reason for the request, or who made the request?
It's my understanding the applicant made the request. I am not 100% certain about the reasoning.
We've seen this
The applicant here
before.
tonight?
Okay. I mean, we can table it. I don't think anything's changed since the last time it came up here, but I don't have any issue tabling it personally. Do we want to, I'll make a motion to table it. I don't understand the reason, but.
Is that the process?
Yes, if council, there was a request made, I believe Mr. Palin had communicated it to council via an email. If council would like to consider that, the motion to table it at this time,
Technically, to continue it to a date specific in the future.
so that we would be tabling it, I believe, to January 4th was the request.
I mean, I don't think it hurts. I'll make a motion to continue to the January 4th meeting.
So they've made a specific date request. It's not our next meeting
Yes,
either.
January 4th.
I think that's pretty telling.
Is there a second to that motion?
Okay, I think the motion dies on the floor for lack of a second.
Okay.
So as a result, guess we're gonna present it. Is that the plan?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the flexibility, everybody.
Good evening. So the request is by Emerit Takar on behalf of owner Don Shepard with Healing Word Church for a preliminary development plan approval for a gas station to be constructed on the property located at the southwest corner of Manchester Road and Dixie Highway. Parcel ID 07053260230. If approved as a part of the plan development process, the property would be rezoned to PD, Plan Development District, to acknowledge that there is a plan development associated with the property. The Planning Commission's recommendation of approval is being forwarded to City Council for final review and decision. Background: originally this request was heard by the Planning Commission at their regular meeting held on June 9th, 2021. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to approve the request with the following conditions. Landscaping plan submitted that shows adequate screening provided surrounding properties and that the engineering department comments were met, traffic study, etc. The Planning Commission's recommendation of approval was forwarded with those noted conditions for the City Council to consider at their regular meeting on July 20th, 2021. At their regular meeting held on August 3rd, 2021, City Council denied the planning development and map amendment request by majority vote. The applicant proposes the same plan as previously heard by the Planning Commission and City Council to construct a gas station with 5 pumps at the southwest corner of Manchester Road and Dixie Highway. Per the Warren County Auditor, the property is a total of 1.78 acres. The property is zoned R2, low-density residential district. The purpose of this zoning district is to provide low-density, single-family residence uses in a more urban setting. As you can see right there, that was just a map showing the R2 zoning district. You can continue. Thank you. Staff analysis. As you can see right here, we're looking at the proposed site plan. It is the same as you saw before. R2 zoning district setbacks: front yard 40 feet, side yards 8 feet, rear yard 50 feet. The proposed gas station setbacks: main building, front yard on Dixie Highway 122 feet, front yard on Manchester Road, because this is a corner lot, 65.16 feet. The rear yard's 84 feet, and the side yard is a total of 135.92 feet. The gas pump setback is 30 feet from Dixie Highway. Per table 1218-1, number of off-street parking spaces required. Fuel stations require 1 parking space per 300 square feet of indoor floor area plus 1 parking space per fuel pump at a service bay. Service bay may not be counted as a parking space. Proposed main building is approximately 3,500 square feet. 12 parking spaces would be required. 5 gas station pumps, 5 additional parking spaces required. So proposed is 15 with 5 spaces next to the pumps. The proposed parking would meet the development code space requirement for fuel stations. These are the proposed elevations. This is another gas station that would be the same if approved at this location. The architectural standards would meet those of the Middletown Development Code, and the signage would be reviewed at a later date. This is only just showing you what an example of an existing gas station looks like. Public notice requirement per the Middletown Development Code, Table 1226-1, notice requirements. Public notice was published a minimum of 30 days prior to the Public Planning Commission meeting as well as this meeting. Notice was provided to all owners within 200 feet, and we did not receive any comments. This is the review criteria for the plan development, preliminary, and zoning map amendment. The following criteria shall serve as conditions that should generally be satisfied before approval of the PD development plan and zoning map amendment. A, the proposed development is consistent with the master plan, other adopted city plans, and the stated purposes of the Middletown Development Code. B, the proposed development is necessary or desirable because of changing conditions, new planning concepts, or other social or economic conditions. C, the proposed development will not be detrimental to present or potential surrounding uses, but will have a beneficial effect which could not be achieved as well as other zoning districts. D, the proposed development will promote public health, safety, and general welfare. E, the proposed development is not likely to result in significant adverse impacts on natural environment, including air, water, noise, stormwater management, wildlife, and vegetation, or such impacts would be substantially mitigated. And F, the preliminary development plan has been transmitted to all other agencies and departments that are in charge of review. And that concludes my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Was public notice given a second time after the August denial?
Yes, yes, it was, because it had to restart the process over to come back through to you guys again.
Right.
So,
And from what I understand, there's nothing in our city charter that says someone can't take, for example, this public hearing and come back to council time and time again with it, right?
that is correct.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
In the 6 years that I've been here, we have not had this similar action before.
Okay.
But we'd be happy to look into that.
I mean, I'm not suggesting at this time we change it. I just want to make sure we all understand that it's acceptable for someone to do that should they wish.
Yeah.
I did have a question. Oh, has anything changed on this? I mean, I looked through it, it looked exactly the same.
It is the exact same request. You are correct.
I would say there actually is one change in what's happened recently in that we have approved now
Speedway gas.
expansion on the gas station that is adjacent or across the road from this location since then.
Which included an increase in pumps. I think it'll be 12?
10.
10.
Any comments or questions from council before we open the public hearing? Oh, I didn't see that. Is it on the agenda for a first reading? Or is it
It is not on the agenda. It still counts as a public hearing, and then we'll have the first reading at the next meeting.
So the final vote for this will not be until the new year.
That's my understanding.
Is that normal for public hearings? Don't we usually have the first reading the same meeting?
We would have, but I think we were anticipating that there was probably going to be a continuance since the applicant had asked for it. So our mistake.
Okay.
There is nothing that legally prevents this from happening this way.
Of course, what everyone's obviously getting at is it this council that votes on it, or is it the next council? So we're kind of in that awkward place. And had it been a first reading this time, it would be this council. If it wasn't, okay. But we're in this situation. We can't change that at this point, correct?
Could we add it?
And these things.
Can we add it at this point?
You would need to have copies of the documentation in front of you, and I don't know if we're at a point where we can, if you want to pause that long to get the proper documentation, we would need to take a recess to go get the proper
It would have to have the
documentation.
ordinance itself in it.
Exactly.
Ms. Nenny, did you have something you were going to say?
I guess I was just, with the, staff's presentation of the, the new, not the master plan, the, comprehensive plan update. I was looking through the comprehensive plan and noticed that the intended use for this particular property stays the same. Does staff have any comment or recommendation based on that? I mean, obviously, we're having a lot of conversation about zoning and intended uses, and
I mean, even with this coming through, we weren't making the change just for one project.
Right.
A residential area on top of commercial.
Right.
But someone could freely come through this process.
But with the acceptance of the property across the street, was there a change in the comprehensive plan for that?
It still remained the same also, supporting commercial there.
Supporting commercial.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
any other comments or questions?
Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, we'll open the public hearing for any comments in favor of the proposed plan, pre-development plan and zoning map amendment. If you have any Comments in favor of it, please come on up to the dais and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I'm the pastor of the church. I'm a licensed real estate appraiser, and I'm also a licensed realtor. So
Please
I've
state
done
your
much.
name and address for the record.
415 Rachel Lane,
Okay, and
1
what's your
mile
name?
from the subject property. Don Shepard.
Don Shep. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good name for a pastor.
Thank you.
I'm here as an appraiser 30 years. I'm here as a realtor 25 years. I'm here as a pastor of the church. I'm here as a citizen that lives within a mile of the property. The narrative regarding it, if I may, I prepared some handouts for you. It's a good narrative. It's okay to just.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It was not my intent to come and read that to you tonight, but it was my intent to leave that with you for consideration, because actually when I was coming, I was anticipating perhaps a tabling, because I was told that later today. And that's evidently not going to happen. I believe that the commission has already approved twice the rezoning. The staff has already approved twice. We're here because of the approval of them and their agreement about the property. And I want to thank the commission and the staff for their kind consideration and time taken to research that property and see what's going on there. I was really impressed by staff, by the way. I want to mention that. They were very professional, did a great job, and it was good working with them. And being a professional appraiser, it's nice to work with professional people. And if you'll note on my little handout there, the church purchased the property 12/4/98. A record of taxes is also attached to your handout. It shows that the church has been paying taxes on that property since 1998 as a commercial property. Also attached to the handout is a zoning identification of the property. It's zoned in Warren County as commercial. So it's zoned commercial. We paid $40,000 in taxes, and we went to Franklin. We went to Lebanon, Warren County, and tried to get it rezoned because we're 501c, and they would not do that. They said that it was a highly visible property, it was commercial, and they would not change that. So we did that 3 times, tried to get a rezoning, and then we went to the state, Columbus, the zoning department of Ohio. And there we were represented by an attorney. I went myself, and they would not rezone it after the notes they read by Warren County. So it's been zoned commercial for 20-some years, and we've been paying taxes as commercial. And so that I think in my job, what I do, every appraisal, and I did 10 today, the important thing is the highest and best use. And that's an analysis that has to be done to determine what's the use of that property. Most of the time, it's very clear because most residentials are residentials. We talked a moment ago about variances, et cetera, et cetera. And I did a highest and best use analysis of the corner, and it's definitely not residential. Based on traffic count, based on the fact that we have an offer right here now, a willing and able buyer, that is market value, a transaction, and we have a backup offer on the property too. So we have 2 willing and able buyers that want to buy that property for the same use. And there was argument about, well, we don't want all that on that corner. Well, in regard to that, first of all, our buyer intends to build a state-of-the-art facility. He's not going to come in there and throw something up that's there now by Speedway. He's going to spend $3 million, and he's going to improve that corner. And when you come in on Manchester or Dixie, you're going to see a very sophisticated property. And not only that, the word was, the council approved Speedway. And we're right across from them. And if you're going to give them a rezoning, why would you not give this person a rezoning And this is a superior corner by far. The dimensions exceed anything their corner has, and we're not bounding on any residential. We own the other property that it adjoins to the west, and the property to the south is a vacant lot. And so it's no intrusion there at all, and it has natural barriers. There are trees everywhere, would not have to be removed at all. As a matter of fact, that used to be a nursery. And so it's got all the necessary characteristics of a really good buildable commercial site. And the argument, I guess, is, well, we don't want another. I disagree with that. I think that first of all, the demand with what's going on in the world today for oil is incredible. And I believe that gas stations are competitive. And it's good to have competing gas stations on your corner. I live within a mile. I live in the Oaks at 415 Rachel. And I'd love to have another service convenience station there. And not only that, there's been change of use already. The intended use is already mentioned, but the change of use is Dollar Store is already built there. And there's no argument it exists. And then on down on Manchester is a veterinarian office. And that is very active and ongoing. It's a business. It's commercial. And the other corner is occupied by a gentleman who bought the corner. This is all hearsay, but he told me personally, and I can't document it. I did not do any title search or anything of that nature, but I did look at the records, and he says he bought that corner, the car lot, and he owns that, and he has a long-term land contract. And I went and talked to him about 3 weeks ago, and he said there's nothing said about UDF building a gas station. So now we have 2 gas stations. We're down to 2. The other corner I'm aware of too, because there was a group that bought that corner just about a year ago, and they came to us first, and they bought 20 acres there, and they converted the church building into a banquet hall. And they're doing that right now. They're making major improvement there. So now again, you have a change of use from a church to a business. So now you got 3 change of uses there, and you got a predominant, obviously, highest and best use when just seeing what's going on. And we really feel that as a church, and we've been through the COVID, been very difficult. And COVID has really been strenuous on us, and we've been paying a tax on something that we should have never paid a tax on because we're a 501c. And but that's a whole nother story. But we really, as a church, need to sell that property. And I don't know what that means to you folks. What it means to us is that we can continue to give into our community. We sell that, there'll be funds released to help, and we help Shalom, we help other ministries in our city. We're there reaching out. We're not there to be a business. We never bought the corner to put a business there. We bought the corner to build a church there. We had architects from Columbus and also engineers from Columbus. They came and looked at the lot. We did a lot of prints. We did a lot of research, and the lot was not conducive for church building. So therefore, we didn't. And now we really need to sell it. And so we're our church is kind of making a plea. We'd like for you to reconsider and give some consideration to the fact that the highest and best use, you couldn't argue, you just can't. I'm a professional appraiser, and there absolutely is not a use for residential property on that corner. Would you want to live on a corner across from Speedway? Would you want to live on a corner across from a fruit stand? Or a car lot with buy here, pay here? I don't think so. So that corner is definitely not a residential lot. Now, it could have another use for commercial, obviously. It could be a fire station. The city's got the money and step up, and we'll talk. But it's not any of those things right now. It's a vacant lot, and it's highest and best use. Highest and best use, the definition of that is simply this: the greatest return for the dollar spent. And you're not going to get a greater return for your dollar spent invested at $3 million than you're going to get on a gas company. Creates competition, creates jobs, creates taxes, creates a better look for the community. And I think that it's got all those good things going for it. Again, I represent the church. Here is the zoning. You can look at it. It's highlighted in your paper. And here is the site. You can look at it. And there are the taxes that are being paid. And in my briefcase portfolio here, I have a tax bill that's now, they're saying they're going to increase. You know, you get these little cards in the mail. This is Warren County telling the church they're increasing our taxes. And so we truly need to sell that property. And thank you for your kind consideration. I hope I didn't come on too strong, but I love the church. I love people. I care about people. I care about our community. I'm from this community. I've always lived here and always been a part of the community, and intend to continue to pour into the community, you know, myself and my finances, et cetera. Is there any questions I can answer after all that narrative? I could have let you read it and we could have already been home. But I'm a preacher. Can I get a witness? Will somebody say amen in here? I need some help up in here. Hallelujah.
Mr. Shepherd, I appreciate all of that. My question is, when you looked into using this property commercially for your church, why was it that use of that property was not viable, but where the use of this property for this intended use is more viable?
Glad to answer that.
Explain to me why that.
The lot was too small to build a sanctuary and to put proper parking and an auxiliary building. It's 1.7.
You guys looked into before you purchased the property?
We looked into that, and the first architect said it looked doable. And then the architects after that said it would not be conducive for that use. So that's what happened. And that's, 25 years ago. But we own 16 acres there. And
if we were to construct a church there, would we have had to have a change in zoning for a church as opposed to this? I mean, since it's zoned residential, I'm trying to understand.
All churches are built on residential zoning.
On residential.
Not commercial.
Okay.
So to be a church, you have to have residential zoning. And if it is commercial, you have to get it changed to residential to build it. It's called a house of prayer.
Okay.
Okay, and it's a house, and that's why they everywhere, not just in.
That helps me make sense to that.
Okay, fine. Any other questions? I'm getting fired up here. I'm taking offering here. Anybody got an offering plate? At least I can get away here with some money. No, please.
If you feel you've been paying the wrong taxes, that would definitely be a county issue you should address with the county. If you feel you're paying commercial taxes and it shouldn't be that, I would just submit.
Well, the property has been annexed. Warren County doesn't have the authority over zoning anymore. So
I'm talking about the real estate taxes.
Well, they're not going to forgive them because of zoning. Period. It's commercial. It's right there on your paper. And they're not going to forgive the taxes because it is zoned commercial. We paid $40,000.
I'm confused. We have in front of us, it says it's zoned R2 low density residential.
That's your zoning, not Warren County. We are in Warren County.
Okay, so it's county vice city zoning is the item in question here, and the county is charging you commercial taxes.
And I think the city has priority regarding zoning over the county because it's been annexed. Okay?
Deborah, did you?
If you've got some insight on that one, I would love it.
There's a lot more interesting than that last thing.
Thank you, sir.
Zoning designation is the land use that was assigned to that property by the county. According to Warren County, that land use code is commercial. The city of Middletown enacts its own zoning by property and by neighborhood, and that property inside the city limits of Middletown is in what we have designated as a residentially zoned district. We have no control over the county land use specification that they have on it as commercial. All we use to justify the use of the property here in town, what we approve and deny, is based on Middletown's zoning districts and what city council has passed as the best use for that particular property.
Okay, but the property taxes that they're paying are based on county zoning, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And that is, we have no say-so as to how the county zones that particular land use.
I would be curious how many different areas in the city have that conflict. I have no idea how prevalent that is.
I couldn't speak to that.
I mean, if staff runs it across any others, I would just be curious, just so I could kind of wrap my head around that whole topic.
I would just note too, it's not the county zoning, it's county valuing it. So I mean, obviously we zone it, but the county values it as commercial. And they tried to get that changed. Obviously, the county denied them. They tried it at the state level, they were denied. So those entities are valuing the property as commercial. We are zoning it as residential.
That nomenclature makes much more sense. Thank you.
And we are asking for rezoning.
Right.
To match the value, essentially, yeah.
Okay, well, with that, if unless you have any other questions, we'll continue the public hearing for anyone else who'd like to come up and speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if we have anyone else in favor of, I've got so many papers here now, the preliminary development plan and zoning map amendment, if you can come on up. State your name and address.
Matt King, 1515 First Avenue. Pastor, it sounds like you gotta apply for a variance. No, that was a really bad.
He could, by the way, just pointing that out.
So, my day job is High Towers Petroleum Company. We move roughly 7,000 gallons of fuel every 7 minutes all across the United States. And we've had the privilege of working with the potential buyer, Mr. Takar, for quite some time, who owns roughly 50 gas stations. And they are very, very well-built facilities. They are expensive. They go well and beyond the minimum for parking, light standards, and even different compliance. And I would note today, I looked up the GIS map. And with respect to zoning, you have an intersection with 4 plots of land. One is owned by Speedway. One is another commercial piece of property. The other one is bought by UDF. It actually says United Dairy Farmers. So you have one piece left on 4 on an intersection. And I think any average or reasonable person could come to the conclusion that that is a commercial intersection. And based upon Speedway, the land being bought on the GIS system with United Dairy Farmers, I think it's a very reasonable request. And I think it's something that, especially when the American people complain that gas prices are $4 a gallon, as a business person, I always value competition. And so I think that that's something that it would be great, especially looking at the current Speedway building versus what Mr. Chakar is willing to do. So even if it may not be heard and voted by this council or the future council, I think it's something to look at people's reputation as well as that intersection. So I would be in favor of that. Thank you.
And to be clear, the other fueling stations that are owned by the same owners in Middletown, I believe they're the 2 gas stations off the Franklin exit and Davies, is that correct? The 2 gas stations off of the Franklin exit of 75 and Davies, are those the ones in Middletown? Just so we all can get a frame of reference. That was what was told to us at the last. Okay. Just gives us an idea of the other gas stations and how they would be managed. Okay, any other comments in favor of the amendment? Okay, with that, we will open the floor for any comments in opposition to the amendment. Okay, we will close our public hearing for the preliminary development plan and zoning map amendment and anticipate the first reading, I suppose, for that at the December 21st meeting, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, one more presentation this evening. Chief Burke, will you be giving the presentation for the One City for Recovery update?
I'll just do some introductions. First of all, you guys have been asking for this for some time. We started a pilot program. We paired with One City. When I became chief, I thought it was important to start a COP program. And I did that with 2 officers, Wayne Birch and Holly Owens, and they work hand in hand with One City. And the big issue we have right now is the homeless issue. It's increased over the couple years. And they are working with One City, and I think the partnership, like I said from the beginning, you have to build those relationships with the homeless. And I think we're finally at that point where the officers are building relationships along with Victoria and Lindsay that work with One City. And by building those relationships, we're actually getting individuals into treatment, we're finding them permanent housing, and that's the objective, is to find alternatives to them to get them help, get them treatment, get them housing, so they become productive members of society. And I think Lindsay can come up here from One City and kind of give some data. Between that and continuing the, used to be the HRT team, the heroin response team, it's now the quick response team, because we respond to any drug overdose. I think by One City being involved in that, and also the partnership with COP, I think we are having an impact on the homeless. But they can come up here, and this is Lindsay and Victoria, and give you some more data on that.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Irvin. I'm with the Hope Line through One City. This is Victoria Hensley. She's the care coordinator that covers Middletown. So we are currently about halfway through our 6-month pilot. That's scheduled to end in February. We've been doing the quick response team in Middletown since 2016, and we've had great success. So I was really excited to kind of move away from the substance abuse and look at some of the homeless population, because a lot of people, you know, we meet a lot of people out here, and it is a lot about relationship building. So Victoria's going out 1 day a week with Holly and Wayne, and they are just kind of going to the camps, canvassing, talking to individuals, getting information from them, learning their story, where they come from, how long have they been here, what barriers do they have, and why are they not in housing or some sort of provider for mental health, substance use. And so we've been pulling a lot of that information. What I think, 3 months in, we're finally starting to see the results from the relationships being built. They're taking, lunches out from local volunteers, just kind of getting that trust built. And she's had a lot of success with individuals. As of right now, within the 3 months, she's made contact with 68 different individuals, and she's averaging outreach of 22 people a day for that 1 day a week that they're going out. There's been 25 direct referrals made. That could be to outpatient, inpatient treatment services for substance abuse, social services, housing, mental health, things like that, medications. A lot of these individuals don't even know their access to medications and things. And then we've also made contact with multiple veterans out here that are not always aware of what services they are available for them. So I think that's been a huge help, because a lot of these individuals don't even know how to seek help. And so she's literally putting her boots on, going into these homeless camps, talking to these individuals, and bringing a lot of individuals out. And there's been 17 actual connections to treatment services, which is a 25% success rate. And 4 people so far have been connected to permanent housing, which means they're good. You're not going to see them back on the streets in a month or two. They're connected with service providers that are going to be supportive, that if they start falling off track again due to substance abuse or mental health, they're engaging with these providers that are providing this permanent housing for them. So they're going to be caught pretty quickly. So I think I was really excited to do this, because 2016, we've been out here doing so much in the community, and we haven't always got to be in front of you guys to tell you guys how much we believe in this program. And I mean, we've worked with 1,500 individuals, Middletown residents, and connected only over 300 people to treatment. And most of the time, I would say the highest percent of that is inpatient treatment, where they're going to be there for 90 plus days, and they're getting, all the wraparound services, mental health treatment, trauma related, so they're getting a lot of services. And I'm very grateful to be a part of that and seeing what a change. And this is Victoria. I know she's not much of the speaker, but to hear what the clients are saying about her and what the officers are saying about her, it's extremely important in these communities, because these individuals, a lot of people don't want to go into the homeless camps. They don't want to make contact with these individuals. And as soon as she hears of a new camp, she's getting her boots on, she's calling Bert, and she's excited to go out there. And I love that about her. So we are very blessed to have her on our team. And I think that City Council is extremely lucky to have her in Middletown.
Yeah, just a couple quick updates of individuals that we have got into long-term treatment.
Victoria, can you step just a little closer to that microphone?
So just a couple updates. There was a individual living under the Route 4 bridge. I think it's Route 4 bridge, going into Post Town.
an individual there. He's been placed into long-term services, so they will help him with the housing and whatever, if he needs to apply for Social Security or reapply for Social Security because he was not getting those services before. So those have been set up for him, which is amazing. He's no longer there. A couple of the individuals that were placed into permanent housing, so they were street homeless, and we just engaged with them with the lunches, and the lady said that she was homeless. We were able to connect her to temporary housing, and then she signed her lease a couple weeks ago for her apartment for her and her husband. And then the other couple was a veteran that was living literally in a tent with his fiance and dog, and they are now in permanent housing as well. That took a little bit longer because VA services is just a little bit longer than regular services, but those are just a couple quick updates I just wanted to give you guys, and if you have any questions.
Have we been able to connect any of these individuals with jobs?
The individuals that are in the housing do get benefits like Social Security benefits. Wayne was reached out to by a church that is working with individuals to get them jobs and IDs and birth certificates, because a lot of our folks don't have that, and you have to have that stuff to get a job. So I know that Holly and Wayne personally took someone to get an ID the other day so they can start that process. So they've been huge in this process of working with us.
I think it takes a lot of trust building because, the first couple weeks, she's like, nobody's giving me their right name. Nobody's telling me who they are. And now she's like, oh, I found out Joe Smith's real name is, so that way you're seeing that trust being built. And with just in 3 months that they're actually providing her real information, telling their stories.
Yep.
And, so I hope that when they're ready, within 3 months to do this much, I feel like I'm excited to see, what the next 3 months are going to be.
Now, speaking of the next 3 months, there was snow tonight, and the temperatures are dropping, and I think the conditions are getting worse. From your perspective, just understanding the community right now, what do you see as the biggest needs of our community in order to continue to be successful in this program and to potentially have a greater success in this program?
I mean, I would hope that we could get some kind of temporary shelter. I know Shalom, I don't think they're going to run this year, so it is a huge concern of what are they going to do. And it could push them to say, hey, I'm ready to get out of here. So, we're there for them if they make that decision and they want to get out. But it's a fear that, it's going to be a bad winter.
And most of these individuals you're finding in the camps. So in the camps, we're coming to know through the police. That's been usually the connection. Because I know that we see a lot of homeless people on the streets. Is the assumption that they end up at camps at night? I know I've seen some of them heading in certain directions, but is that the way that you're kind of managing, or is anybody kind of dealing with the homeless that we see on the streets during the day?
I think they're about the same.
Okay.
They're the same individuals. They are, in their camps at night and then out during the day to get warm, to, get out of the elements. They do go to certain areas of town.
And have you seen an increase in the number or the, obviously you see a lot of the same faces. Are you seeing a lot more new faces in Middletown, or how, just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have seen an increase, actually since June. The numbers that Officer Owens and myself have been keeping, we're actually up to about 190 homeless people. And some of them pass through, they're gone after a week. Some of them are here. But we have touched base with, it's right at about 190 homeless people since mid-June. And that predominantly is the downtown area. We have it, we get information that there are camps on the east end. They're a little bit harder to find. But that predominantly, the 190 is the Crawford Street, downtown, Amanda, Nita, and the Titus Street area. We really haven't even gotten out east. We're doing this 2 days a week. Myself and Officer Owens are. And, but yeah, there has been an increase.
So we asked the DMI when they came and spoke with us at the last meeting about some sort of how their numbers relate to one city and recommendations and all of that. So, unfortunately, we were not able to address that in a timely manner, but I'm just curious how the lack of downtown security will play into how you all are doing your jobs and what you think about that.
So I only received 2 referrals from them.
Okay.
So that was it. There was no other interactions. I received 1 text and 1 phone call.
Most of the calls that we receive are from one location. That's because that's where they hang out during the day. So that's where we're getting most of our calls. I'm not seeing a lot of calls in other downtown locations or businesses on a high volume involving the homeless.
Would it help for citizens to report them? Because, I mean, I could be calling all day long in different areas. I just haven't done it. So maybe that's something.
Our first day out, we actually ran into you.
Oh, yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yes, that was our
We
first
did.
day out.
I remember that. That was your first day.
Yeah, that was our first day out.
So
we've been going since then at least.
Is that, I mean, is that something you would like citizens to do, is to help identify? Would that be helpful? Is it, are you plenty busy and you don't need?
I think we've identified most of them just by going to different locations, because there's certain spots that they go. And they allow us into their areas.
Well, I mean,
They know we're there.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I keep going back to, and I don't want to run out of time. And I don't know how we define success in the contract. I appreciate the work that's being done by everybody here. But how many camps have we dismantled in the past 3 months?
Well, actually, right now, we were supposed to go out today on our first one. We were actually going to take down, that was behind the old Lincoln School. But due to the weather and the ground being wet, the city couldn't get their heavy equipment in there to help us out. So that's been postponed for maybe another week. A lot of the areas where you're seeing this is on private property.
And have you gotten reports from those private property owners? No. What is the, I guess, the difference in private property versus city-owned property where these camps are happening? Because I know that I've heard from a lot of citizens that, Smith Park is a problem, and the sales by the airport and all of that.
There is a
like,
big,
and that's our property.
well, there's a big portion where they stay is not, it belongs to the paper factory.
Okay.
On the backside of Smith Park. That is all owned by Essity. So as of right now, we have not received any complaints from them.
And unless you receive a complaint from them, you're not able to access their property to.
Well, it's not illegal to live in a tent.
On private property.
And we have a lot of people that live in people's backyards and neighborhoods.
Is there a way we could engage with some of these private property owners to sort of start that conversation with them? I mean, they might not be reaching out to us, but can we reach out to them and say, hey, we've noticed that this is on your property? I don't.
That could be done.
Just trying to think of.
But at the same time, by tearing those camps down, we're bringing them out to the public.
Sure. I understand the.
If we start tearing them down, they're going.
But aren't they in the public already? I mean, it's not as if they stay in camps all day and all night.
I mean, they're individuals. They're gonna go get basic needs. They're gonna be out.
And I'm not saying they shouldn't, no.
Out in the community, and that's our way of engaging with them, but they have to have a place to have shelter at night. Even with the 2 shelters, like the one it's not a homeless shelter in Middletown, the Hope House, and then you have Serve City in Hamilton. Even if those camps were taken down, they couldn't house those individuals. We could not house them. So I don't know where they're gonna go. So our efforts are to engage with them and build rapport with them and relationships with them to get them into long-term solutions, not just a quick fix of tearing everything down and then, well, I don't know what to tell you guys to do now. We don't want to do that with them. We want to get them in long-term solutions.
But I guess there's, I mean, in my mind, there was always an endpoint of, okay, here are your choices in Middletown. You can go into temporary housing, we can find it for you. You can go out of town and find it somewhere else. We can find you a place in treatment. You can go to jail, but you can't stay unsheltered. I mean, we have too many resources here for you. And that seemed to me the options, but.
It's not illegal to be homeless. I mean, we can't arrest them just because they're homeless. I mean.
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, I mean, if they're on private property, and I'm not talking about that city, neighborhoods throughout the city, there are all kinds of neighborhoods with tents in the backyards. They let them sleep in their garages.
Their
And,
vehicles.
Yeah, and as long as they're on private property and the property owner is not complaining to us or doesn't want them to move, it's not illegal to sleep in those tents.
Well, I suppose that, I mean, that's sort of a different subject, what we were talking about, taking back control of our parks so that they're safe and welcoming to residents that want to use them and walk in them without confronting people camping out in the park. What were you talking about in backyards? That's a different subject.
Well, yeah, right. But out of the 190, that's where they're at. They're in the camps. They're in people's backyards. They break into places at night. They break into old factories.
And I think we can arrest them for that.
Obviously, that's illegal.
We could probably arrest them for that. Yeah.
But they're not in one place. They're all over.
Yeah.
It's sure quite the problem, and I'm glad you guys are helping out and doing everything you can. I know you're putting a lot of effort into it, and there's no perfect solution by any means.
And I certainly appreciate all of the efforts and the people that you have gotten into permanent housing. All of that is a success, 100%. But I think that some of the concern definitely comes from our response from residents about public parks and pathways. Like I said, Smith Park is something that I hear about constantly from residents, and the safety in that park and those sort of issues. So I think that's just something that we would hope that is taken into consideration when addressing some of these concerns, is that we also have permanent residents in the city that we have to really worry about with regards to those sort of safety issues.
We have moved some out of Smith Park in different areas where we get the complaints.
They told us they have to move. Like, you can't just.
I mean, I think when it comes to city-owned properties, there's not that gray area where, like, it's okay if you're here and it's okay to. It's not okay on public property.
The ones that were actually in the park were told to move.
Yeah.
And they moved.
Well, again, like I said, I appreciate all of the efforts and all of the success that you guys have had. And I know that the residents do as well.
Have we engaged with Estity at all? Because I think part of the issue is that those camps are right next to Smith Park and they're right next to the trails, the bike trails where people are seeing people coming in and out. So, I mean, does Estity have awareness at all?
We are actually working with Essity to acquire some properties, part of the long-term control plan and the new downtown basin, and focusing on that. But another piece of what we want to and are talking to them about are that specific property that you're referencing, and our potential solution would be to clean that, all of the brush, to develop it more as a parking area and to move their trucks that they use for storage of paper to that lot. And in doing that, it would clean up the downtown, it would clean up that lot, and it would also no longer make an attractive place for homeless to be. So we are pursuing that. It's just not a real fast answer, but we're absolutely having those discussions.
I thought there were some conversations. I mean, obviously, my time here is almost done, and I've made my opinions very known. So I hope that this council continues to support your efforts. I hope that we work with the county. I know that's something that everyone's been talking about for at least the 4 years I've been here. But I really think you guys are doing great work. I think it is a long-term game in general. There aren't quick solutions, and building relationships is effective. It's the only thing we're seeing that works. So I very much appreciate you, and I will continue to be a voice to support you from that side of the podium.
Yeah, just to clarify, my points were not to criticize the work that you're doing. My concern is that these camps, being allowed to exist, have created magnets for unsheltered homeless to come here from other locations, and it's gone completely unanswered, whether it's private property or public property. And again, if you have a magnet for unsheltered homeless, that exacerbates the problem instead of can we help the people who are here and get them into the treatment that they need or to a safe living situation. So I know you're working hard to do that, so I applaud your efforts in that. But I think we may have to move to I would like to see us move to a different stage in the process of dismantling some of these magnets for poverty. Or, I'm sorry, magnets for homelessness.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Next, we have citizen comments. Do we have any comment cards received this evening? I did not receive any.
Kind of rushed. I was rushed, so.
Yeah, are there any sitting out there that didn't get turned in? Okay, we will then move on to council comments. We'll start with Ms. Vittori.
Oh, gosh, I'm going to go ahead and say I don't have any since we're running so behind. Thank you.
Mr. Mulligan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, just briefly, congratulations to the Holiday Hoopla Committee. Downtown Middletown, the ice skating is off and running to a strong start. So some months and months of effort that went in to make that possible. And we're already seeing hundreds of visitors in our downtown that wouldn't be here otherwise. So it really literally brightens up our downtown. Thank you.
Ms. Nenny.
Thank you. To reiterate Councilman Mulligan's comments about the downtown holiday hoopla, I can say that we've definitely seen an increase in people downtown, and it's really wonderful to see. And I know that it's a representation of a lot of the efforts of citizens and that committee, and have worked so hard to make that happen. And the only other comments I have tonight are just in reference to our later presentation from the mayor. I know that you had the intention to recognize the citizens for their efforts in getting the roads levy passed, but I also wanted to sort of call out some of the individual citizens that helped in those efforts. You know, there was a committee of private citizens that put their time and energy and money into that campaign to really educate the citizens and get them out and encourage them to vote for the roads levy. So I just want to recognize all of those members of the roads levy committee that really helped with that, and to thank them, and then to thank city staff for all of their efforts. I know we've been really busy up until now, so our planning and zoning and those departments have been just really busy with creating the comprehensive plan and getting that out for us, and really working towards those efforts. So I just want to thank staff for that as well, and that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to mention Santa's coming to Middletown. I don't know if you guys all heard, but the neighborhoods are going to be lit up with a little bit of help from the Middletown Division of Fire starting Saturday and Sunday, right?
Last week.
Shoot. That was last weekend. And, oh, see? Okay. I thought I saw a post yesterday. Okay. So, you guys are dry. All right. So anyway, Santa's coming to town. Have a look at cityofmiddletownevents.com, right, Shelby? That's where they can find all that stuff. So he's going to, Santa and Mr. Claus will be in the area as well. That was all I was going to say, and messed that up. All right. City manager report. Mr. Palahniuk, do you have anything to share with us?
Yes, just a couple of quick notes. The swearing-in ceremony for the new council members will be held next Tuesday, December 14th at 6:30 p.m. here in council chambers. The mayor has already mentioned about Santa, and again, look at www.cityofmiddletownevents.com to follow where Santa is at any given time. Wanted to note we had a really good response to the Public Works Department tree giveaway over the weekend, but if anybody was still unable to pick up their tree at Smith Park on Friday or Saturday, there'll be another opportunity tomorrow, Wednesday, December 8th at Smith Park for those last trees that are available. And then final note, the city building will be closed from 11:30 to 5 this Friday, December 10th, for the annual city employee holiday party. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. Ms. Skank, are you ready to present that for us?
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the city council minutes from September 7th, 2021. To receive and file the following board and commission minutes: Board of Zoning Appeals from September 1st, 2021, and the Board of Health from October 12th, 2021. To confirm the promotional appointment of Sandra Bird to the position of Executive Account Clerk in the Department of Finance, Division of Treasury, and to confirm the appointment of Matthew Queen to the position of Firefighter Paramedic in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire. To receive and file oaths of office for Thomas Pence, Bradley Brown, and Michael Bishop. To approve a contract with Capital Electric Line Builders Incorporated of Dayton, Ohio for signal head and LED panel replacement at various intersections around the city in the amount of $36,816. And to purchase liquid phosphate, sodium hexametaphosphate for use at the water treatment plant of Brentag Mid-South Incorporated of Henderson, Kentucky in the amount of $9.348 gallon for the estimated use of 7,260 gallons, approximately $67,866.48.
I move to approve the issues and actions set forth in the consent agenda.
Second.
Did you capture the
That was in unison.
harmonious?
We've been practicing
Okay.
all week.
Good job.
Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen, presenting legislation.
Yes, ma'am. This evening, we do have 3 matters we are asking you to consider as an emergency. So I'd ask if there's a motion to waive the charter requirements for 2 readings and 31 days to enactment regarding Resolution R 2021-49, Resolution R 2021-50, and Resolution R 2021-51.
I move that the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days be waived, and that the previously read resolutions or ordinances be declared emergencies and read one time only.
Second.
Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
First matter for your consideration this evening is Ordinance O 2021-114, an ordinance authorizing an amendment of Ordinance O 2021-37, which authorized a land swap and development agreement with Dickie D. Brandon, trustee of the OLC Revocable Land Trust, Dickie Brandon and Philip Brandon. This is here for a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Any comments or questions from either Mr. Palanick or City Council? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Next matter before you is Ordinance O 2021-115, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Neighborhood Housing Services of Hamilton Incorporated for implementation of the first-time home buyer assistance program. Here for a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Mr. Palanick, City Council, any comments or additions to this one? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Item number 3 this evening is Ordinance O 2021-99, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a small business grant agreement with Ohio Soda LLC. Here for a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palanick, did I see in an email that this wanted to be changed to a second reading emergency?
Yes, I believe so, because in this case, we're using fiscal year 2021 dollars, and for us to encumber that, it has to happen within the year. So that would be our preference, and that would only be for our convenience so that we can use those funds. And the monies actually don't get paid out to the grant recipient except as reimbursement, and that will happen sometime in 2022. But what we're trying to do is encumber the 2021 dollars attached to this. So that would be the
Someone
reason
has a
for it.
comment about this one that may.
I apologize for not catching that. I should have noted it on my emergency legislation, but we could do that as a separate matter. I apologize.
Oh, okay. I guess my question was more of a legal one because it wasn't written into there as an emergency. Is it okay for us to do that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I thought you were trying to.
I guess I'll withdraw the motion.
If you could withdraw the motion to adopt at this point in time.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Between the first and the second reading, you are allowed to make those modifications, so it would be allowable at this point in time. So I would ask if there's a motion to consider item O 2021-99 as an emergency and waive the charter requirements at this time.
So moved.
Second.
I apologize for the confusion.
Ms. Gank, you call the roll on that one? When you get a minute, catching up.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
And now we'll consider ordinance O 2021-99 as a second reading emergency if there's a motion to adopt at this time.
So moved for adoption.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, are there any comments or questions on the content of this legislation item?
Nothing further from the first reading.
Thank you for catching that.
Okay, Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
The next matter is Resolution R 2021-47, a resolution authorizing an agreement granting tax abatement to Ohio Soda LLC for redevelopment of 1700 Central Avenue in the downtown Middletown Community Reinvestment Area. Also here for a second reading.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
All right, Mr. Palanick, did you have anything you wanted to add on this? Or
Unless there were questions, I don't have anything to add.
I had just a question. We'll start with this one. In this case, what are the property owners committing to? Is there actually a commitment of dollars in a certain time frame? Because the verbiage made it sound like they could or could not invest a certain amount of dollars, and if it just seemed like it wasn't as cut and dry as.
I believe that Director Lyons is a lot more up to speed on this. I will let her respond to
Okay, thank you.
that particular question.
The property owner has committed an investment of over $750,000. It's based on the purchase price of $144,000 and about anywhere a little bit north of $600,000 of improvements. They're going to complete 10 residential units and 5 commercial units on the first floor.
Okay, so just so I understand how the agreement works, so they've committed to that. So is that one of the stipulations of the CRA, is that they invest that specific amount of money?
Yes, it's one of the stipulations of the CRA. So what happens is the county auditor's office picks up the value. We don't know how much the county auditor is going to pick up.
Sure.
It's just the commitment. He's going to show that he made X amount of dollars, and then, he says that he makes this investment. But essentially what you look at is, are there 10 units available for rent? Are there 5 commercial units available for rent? So they show that that's investment. So he might be able to show some receipts, but that's typically not done. It's based on real estate taxes, and the auditor's office doesn't verify that. What the auditor's office will do is they'll look at it, and he'll get permits, and they'll check the permits, and then they'll put a new value on it. So what the CRA does is it freezes that, he's already paying taxes on there's a building value that exists right now. It freezes that value for 12 years.
Sure. Sorry. So I understand that part. I guess my question is, in the agreement, is it, and I don't have it now in front of me because it was updated less
The only
than 5
thing that
hours.
was updated is that we changed the value, because I think
Right.
they doubled the purchase price. So that was the only thing that really changed for Ohio Soda.
Okay, so I just wanted to look at the agreement and what is being agreed to. So let me pull it up exactly here. I thought we might have it printed since it was new, so I didn't have that before.
The cost of the investment you made connected with the project by the owners is estimated to exceed $700,000.
Okay, and then I guess the part that I had questions over, it says the estimates provided in this section are good faith estimates and shall not be construed in a manner that would limit the amount or term of the tax exemptions provided in this agreement. So here's my theoretical, right, that say this property owner doesn't make any investments, but others in the area do. The property values go up, the owner doesn't make any investments, but the taxes are abated on that difference in real estate property. Is that owner still in compliance with the CRA having
He doesn't make
not?
anything, he's not going to get a CRA. When we do the annual review, he won't. taxes are a full year behind. So we have a full year to see everything that goes into the value and taxes are collected. And then the TRRC meeting is 6 months after the tax lien date. So you have essentially 18 months to catch up with the project to see if it's in compliance or not.
So I guess what I don't understand is what makes it in compliance? Is it, because we're not tracking jobs or payroll at all, so we're only,
The investment that makes it compliant.
okay, so we're checking receipts, or what are they submitting?
You don't make it compliant, it's the auditor's office. So we oversee it, and the auditor's office gives them a tax abatement on their taxes. What we just need to verify is that the building's operational, that they've made the investment, they've signed the agreements, and then they're gonna make an investment of $700,000.
So how do we verify that they've made the investment?
There's numerous ways. You can look to see if the buildings are open. You can see, sometimes they can provide receipts, but that's not our job, and we don't do that. We don't.
So my question is, how has the city of Middletown been ensuring that the investments have been made?
You look at the property value, and you see that the value, even though there's an abatement, the auditor still creates a new value. So you see that the investment's been captured. So the auditor's office picks up the new value. It's just not, it's abated. So there's a value that's created. So if you take the abatement off, then they're gonna pay the higher value.
And it's not ticker tied. It's not like I put $1 million in my building and my value went up by $1 million. So the amount that you put in is relevant, but at the end of the day, the county decides really what that increase is.
What we're just doing is.
Sure, but you can see how, where I'm just getting at, if we have others who are investing a lot of money nearby, thus the property value goes up without the individual putting in a certain amount of money into that building, and thus it's improving more because of the property values around it. I just want to make sure that we are holding, those who have CRAs accountable to actually invest X amount of money.
We have, and we will continue to do that.
And then my question is, how do we ensure that if we're not asking for any proof of?
We have annual reports. You ask them, you drive by, you see that there's 10 residents there, you see that there's a new tax office open, or you see that there's a new key maker that's there. You see that there's the investment that's made.
So there's no actual metric, it's just a feeling?
No, there's not a metric.
Feeling that it's going well?
No.
Now, Chriselle, do other communities use metrics? Are we doing something that's totally different than other communities? Or are we doing what other communities are doing in terms of making good faith assumptions that these people are investing in their buildings and investing in the property?
Typically, we're different because we're an urban renewal community, so you see a lot of redevelopment. But a lot of times in a CRA, it's a little easier to track because you have a vacant property and they're building $1 million building. So you know that it's $1 million sale price. So those are easier to track. But when you're doing improvements, the interior improvements, we don't go inside the buildings. The auditor's office doesn't go inside the buildings. It's based on permits, valuations, and all the information that you can have and what the building owner tells us.
Okay, so can you then go into, and maybe you wanted to review this with council, but because I noticed Mr. Palaniuk did not copy council on the Community Reinvestment Area Council that we're supposed to have in place per the ordinance. I mean, I can read that off for council if you'd like, but.
I think we shared with you that we were made aware that we do not have a community housing council. It's part of the ORC. We need to have it. There's special specifications of who is appointed to it. We only meet with CRAs once a year, so we weren't going to have a housing council meeting this year. So we were going to make one up after the first of the year when we had a new council.
But we've had this CRA since 2010, and we haven't had the committee.
And this is my first year doing it, Mayor. You're fully aware of that. You are fully.
Oh, I know. I'm not blaming.
You're fully aware that these incentives are a mess, and you're fully aware that we have been auditing them. You're fully aware that we've been trying to make it right. And I've told you we are going to make it right. I can't speak to the past, but I can speak to the future. I am trying to make it right, and I've told you that I will make it right. I was made aware of it, and we're going to move forward. The Housing Council Authority has this much power. The TRC is the one that has the power that can make amendments and things of that nature. The TRC has the power. I am the housing director, essentially, I've reviewed all of these incentive. I've looked at them. I have 27 years in economic development. I've been president of the Ohio Economic Development Association. I am very experienced with incentives.
Ms. Lyons, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong.
You are. You're constantly questioning me. Constantly.
I just went back to look at the origination of the CRA so that I could 100% educate myself on where these came from, the mentality behind it, why they were created in Middletown to begin with. I read the ordinances, and I noticed that it referenced the establishment of a community reinvestment area council. We don't have one. It was supposed to be created not when you were here. It was before you were here. It just never was created. So I mentioned it because it is something that we need to do. It has to be separate from the Tax Incentive Review Committee, and I can read you the verbiage from the ORC. I just mention it now so that council is aware that we do need to add this committee to the docket, and it has to be something that they review the CRAs annually, and that's how this is supposed to function, which in turn helps council to be better informed about the ongoing nature of the CRAs, whether they're meeting, what they're supposed to meet, and that's all. I'm not calling anyone out. I'm saying this was in 2010, right? That it wasn't created, and here we are. So I found that just doing my research.
As did I.
Okay, I would appreciate if staff finds out that we're not doing something how we should be doing it, then council is made aware of that, because, I mean, the mayor is supposed to have established 2 of the members of that council, right? And I found that on my own. Apparently you already knew it, but council wasn't aware that wasn't being followed, so.
I will note that obviously we would be bringing, and we're planning to bring that forward to council, so they were going to become very well aware of it.
I also did not receive any emails or I was not made aware of that at all. So, I think that there are certain channels where we can make each other aware and have conversations about these kind of things that don't have to necessarily be embarrassing for people or made to call someone out. So I think obviously there is a reason that we should set up this CRA council. We should definitely do that. Obviously, Director Lyons is working towards that goal, and we're working to try to improve some of the maybe mistakes of past administrations and department heads, but I think that's all we can really do, and we support our staff and support their efforts to keep us in the know and to keep all of these responsibilities held accountable. So I think that is really the goal, is that we do all of those things, and that they don't have to be accusatory or anyone has to be made to feel like they've done something wrong, but we can definitely do better.
Thank you.
I wanted to, is it possible to pull up that that Excel document that's on there? I went through just to get an idea of in Butler County how the CRAs are being used. I just purely put this up here so everyone has some sort of a basis, and I know it's kind of hard to read. I had to hand type every single one of these pieces into this spreadsheet because it doesn't exist anywhere else cumulatively.
Is this something that we could have shared before the council meeting? I
cannot share documents with all of you, Monica. It's a violation of sunshine law, so this is where we do
You could have shared that with staff and asked them to share it with us.
I am trying to share this information right now just to get everyone on the same page. No one has this information. This does not exist anywhere. I put it together so that we can help decision-making, and we're here to vote on a CRA, and this is relevant information for Butler County. And
I just would have appreciated this information before right now. I feel very blindsided by this and this whole thing.
You're welcome to. I got it directly from Ohio Department of Development's website. The data, but I put it in there with my own 2 hands because they don't have a way to culminate it together. And this, you don't have to use it tonight. I'm bringing it up here so everyone can see and we can just discuss it. And I'm not saying we're doing anything wrong here. I'm just looking at how others are using CRAs so that we can talk about CRAs. And maybe maybe this just says, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to have another CRA somewhere in Middletown, because I see them used in other ways here that perhaps we could have really great economic impact. And that's what I'm getting at with this. It's not necessarily that we're doing anything wrong. I'm culminating data, and what I really wanted to show with this is when you look at the major columns to look at are, so the yellow ones are Middletowns, and you can't, the stuff at the bottom, not every single one of the CRAs has values associated with it. They're updating their website, and so the ones at the top are the ones that have all the values reported. But the total investments is one, and they're sorted by total investments in this case. And if you look at the column to the right of that, it's the percent of abatement that they're being given. And then the next column is the term. So how many years is that abatement for? And then it has job creation period, how many jobs are to be retained, the amount of payroll retained. And then we don't need to scroll any further to the right, really. I'm just trying to get a general sense of these, but the number of full-time permanent jobs committed and the amount of payroll committed. The biggest thing I was really impressed with some of these CRAs that are in place. Look at some of these jobs being created and the payroll created and retained and the investments. I mean, there's some really, really, really big ones that perhaps, we can look at some other area of town as well that may benefit from a CRA to this extent, because there's a lot of great success in Butler County with them. Ours, of course, as you mentioned, is an urban area, so it's not going to have a big industrial complex that's built and $98.7 million of investment necessarily. So ours are trending towards the lower amount of investments, but I'm just looking at how some of them are being used elsewhere, and they're giving less than 100% abatement in many cases for situations where they're not directly producing payroll. And I just say it as, we can do whatever we want in Middletown, really. And as I would say, we have to be consistent. And I think that's your goal, is to be consistent in that fashion. I just think that this is really good to look at what are our neighboring cities giving out when it comes to CRAs, and how could we even look at doing them slightly differently, or even entirely different CRA area that we could look at. So
There has been a lot of legislative push to eliminate CRAs. They're kind of old. People don't really use them as much. We use enterprise zones here. Enterprise zones you can get throughout the whole city. Enterprise zones I prefer, because we're able to track jobs and investment, and they're usually for higher, like Phoenix Metals was an enterprise zone, for example. It's a higher investment. So if we did an enterprise zone, you would see larger job creation and investment. The CRAs that we're talking about here is for a distressed urban community. So our numbers are going to be definitely skewed compared to, I think those are probably Monroe, commercial industry. Can't compare the two.
Sorry, are we then saying, I mean, this is a second reading to vote on Ohio soda, so do you want to, I'm just confused. This, to me, feels like new business, like, hey, let's talk about our CRAs. I don't want to conflate it with the proposed Ohio soda.
I would be happy if we had a proposed maybe work session on CRAs that included all of this information.
I don't want this
I'd be
to
happy
reflect on
happy to
Ohio
sit and talk
soda
about
either.
this in a separate conversation.
Agreed.
Sounds good. Great.
That's actually what I was going to point out as well, Mayor. If there are topics like this where you feel like there would be some benefit of discussion in these type of analysis, asking for a work session is a really great way to do that in a way that's public and open, and we can have those conversations.
These are the first CRAs, that we're officially starting right now as this council.
And issues come up, as they come, and that's great. It just, as we move forward, that's maybe an opportunity that you weren't aware of that could help educate and as well as get this out to the public and facilitate that discussion in a way that's easy for everybody.
Okay, and to that same tone, I would like these to be in complete status before 5 hours prior to the council meeting, because the numbers were not in there. And that was incredibly frustrating to me today. I mean, the details are so important to me, and I look through every detail in every one of these council workbooks. And when the number changes less than 5 hours prior, I know it might seem like something little to you, but it means a lot.
Number went up, so that I would have thought that would have been helpful to you, because it showed a bigger investment and a larger commitment.
Here's what it is. The agreement got sent to us in its entirety and said, okay, this is the new one. Now I have to go look through the whole thing and figure out what's changed, what hasn't changed. Is there something, I don't know, now I have to reread all 39 pages again of that agreement because I don't know what's been changed. And that is frustrating to me.
Appropriately noted. We'll try to do better in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions about the CRAs in front of us? I still have heartache on the fact that I feel like there's no exact metrics that we can measure them by. And that,
And I think perhaps that's one of those philosophical discussions, you know, do we believe very specific metrics add value? Because ultimately the value comes back from the auditor. However, there could be, you know, an appropriate way to say, hey, a minimum amount of investment, and then recognizing the fact that that's going to be reflected in a very different auditor value. And that's a reasonable thing, but that hadn't been done in the past. It could be done in the future. That's a topic for discussion. That's a legislative policy. You know, we're more than happy to entertain that kind of discussion if that's what City Council would like to see. And that might be worthy of a strategic planning session or a work session or whatever you'd like to pursue in the future, but probably not worthy to do that on the fly in the middle of a meeting.
I mean, I've been asking for that for a couple of meetings, so I'm not trying to do a last minute. I'm just telling you that I think that I'd like to see these with more clear metrics associated with them that we can measure.
I will mention that our law firm, Ricker and Eckler, prepares all of these incentives for us and reviews them, and they do that for numerous communities throughout the state of Ohio, so they know what is required of us and what makes us compliant. So I'm not doing them on my own.
And I'm not saying they're out of
I know,
compliance.
I
It's a
just wanna make-
philosophical.
I would hope that they'll give you a little assurance to know that they've been prepared by an economic development attorney.
Thank you.
Does it for a living. Any questions? Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
No.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
So I have a quick question. This is the second reading.
This is
not the emergency.
No emergency.
Okay. Sorry, I got lost.
That's okay. By my record, this will move us to item number 5,
Yes.
which is Resolution R 2021-48, a resolution authorizing an agreement of granting tax abatement to Hutch LLC for redevelopment of 52 South Broad Street, commonly known as the Journal News Building, in the downtown Middletown Community Reinvestment Area. Here also so for a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Any comments or questions on this one? This has the similar language without direct measurables or metrics in it that I saw. Okay, Ms. Skank, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
No.
That will take us to item number 6, Resolution R 2021-49, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency. This is the year-end various fund.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palaniuk, did you want to present this?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, each year as we arrive near the end of our fiscal year, we typically will do items like this where we have basically kind of a cleanup of the budget at that point. You know, we have a very large budget with lots of different line items, lots of different funds. We do the very best we can to estimate what certain line items need and what they'll come in at the end of the year. But invariably, there will be those areas that underspend and then those areas that, because of unusual circumstances, might require additional funds. And then we look to balance them out so long as it still remains within the overall budget at the end of the year. So that's effectively what this particular action does. It does it for quite a number of funds. Starts with the general fund, then it goes through several others. And our finance director, Nathan Cahall, probably could be available tonight to answer any questions specifically you have on any of these things, or if Nathan wants to add to it, But basically, this is sort of that cleanup act that we typically would do about this time every year because we are nearing the completion of our fiscal year budget. So Nathan, did you have anything further to add? I know you'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Okay.
I assume the decrease in street levy expenditures, that those will roll over to street levy expenditures for the following year.
Members of council. To your question, Mayor, this is really more of an accounting bookkeeping process with our county auditor's office as they look at our certificate of available resources and the like. We originally budgeted a higher expenditure out of the street levy fund, and we were very fortunate to have a lower bid price for that program, and so that we don't have questions from our county auditor's office as we submit that amended certificate at the end of the year. This just draws down that amount to show that we did not intend to overspend the revenues in the ultimate contract the council awarded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other specific questions? I know there was a lot in that.
There is. As the city manager said, we have a very large and complex budget, and throughout the year, we experienced some very good opportunities that council desires to seize upon that maybe aren't originally budgeted. And also throughout the year, we have some operational things that we did not anticipate in terms of, as you saw there, some public safety service costs and some other things that are very important to the community.
Thank you, and I hope you're enjoying the start to your time here in Middletown.
I am. Thank you.
I would note also, too, you may see some transfers, for instance, within public safety, fire department particularly. They're still reflective of having a year with the COVID pandemic, and meaning that we had to really alter schedules in a number of cases, which meant we had to use a lot more overtime. The other thing is, as you know, we continue to have difficulty finding and recruiting and keeping both police officers and firefighters, and that also reflects on overtime. So, some of the things you see there, overtime obviously is time and a half for the same number of hours, and that can, eat away at a budget quickly. But the overall budget doesn't go up, but at the same time, those specific line items have to be altered. So things like that happen, and that's kind of some of the things you're seeing in there.
Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Should take us to item number 7, Resolution R 2021-50, a resolution authorizing a transfer of funds subject to repayment from the general fund to the 2021 Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Fund and the Solid Waste Disposal Fund and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palanick, would you?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of council, in this case, when we were first introducing that sidewalk curb and gutter fund in the given year, when those assessments are being put into place, but we're actually doing the work, you'll see typically where we have to advance funds to that fund because it's going to take a while to get it paid back out. And then with this next action that you're going to see on number 8, it's going to be the opposite. Then in future years, when those payments come in, then we repay those advances. So this one, because it's fiscal year 2021, we're asking you to advance these dollars to sidewalk, curb, and gutter. And then in the future, you'll see those repaid.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Item number 8 this evening is Resolution R 2021-51, a resolution authorizing transfers from the Central Avenue Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Fund, 2018 Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Fund, 2019 Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Fund, and the 2020 Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Fund to the General Fund for repayment of prior year advances and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palanick, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, just like Susan had indicated in the legislation, and as I had just foreshadowed, now for 2018, 19, and 20, we're paying back some of those advances from the past. So in this case, 2018, $49,533, 2019, $70,855, 2020, $407,002, and then Central Avenue, $10,503, all coming back for what had been previous advances to cover those.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Item number 9 this evening is ordinance O-2021-116, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an amendment to a contract with Perkins Carmack Construction LLC for the design and construction of a maintenance building at the Water Reclamation Facility and declaring an emergency. However, no action is requested until December the 12th, or 21st.
Thank you. And Mr. Pelnick?
Madam Mayor, members of council, you may recall that back on July 20th of this year, we approved this new water treatment building. And at the time, the contract for design and construction was authorized at $1,876,932. We began construction. As we got into it, invariably, like you may see oftentimes, particularly in the current context where we see a lot of inflation and other change orders that come into effect, we're needing to amend that contract by $144,235, so that the new number will now be $2,021,167. Funds are available within sewer capital, and in order to complete this building the way we anticipated, we need to do this, and of course, since it's already begun, that was the reason for it being an emergency.
I assume that'll be a second reading emergency, is that?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay.
Item number 10 is ordinance O-2021-117, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of additional aviation fuel from AvFuel and declaring an emergency. No action requested until December 21st.
Mr. Pelnick?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, this is one of those items that, again, sort of a good thing. We continue to sell a lot more aviation fuel at the airport than we anticipated. And it's good because we're generating a lot more revenue than we anticipated, but we still have to come back to you for supplemental appropriation to then spend some of that additional revenue to buy the next amount of gas to have it available as inventory to keep on selling it. So this is simply asking for a supplemental appropriation of $115,000 that will come from those fuel sales that have already been made so that we can continue to keep inventory and selling at the higher rate. Higher volume, I should say. It's not a higher rate, it's a higher volume.
And I know the mayor had believed we were behind in payments to AvFuel. Did that get checked into? Was that true?
No, we've always made our payments on time. There was never an issue.
Okay. I just wanted to clear that up publicly. Thank you.
Ready before? Thank you. Item number 11 this evening is ordinance O-2021-118, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Schulte Business Services to provide snow removal at Middletown Regional Airport and declaring an emergency. No action requested until the 21st.
Mr. Pelnick?
This item is specifically to simply provide for what we expect will be, of course, the winter season for snow removal prior to ultimately perhaps having a full-time FBO and or whether or not this will continue. But since we're still in that temporary thing, we need to continue with services the way we've done them in the past. So this is a contract for $50 an hour with Schulte Business Services. It would go through May 31st of 2022, so we know we would cover this particular winter season. And it would be to a not to exceed $13,000, and ultimately, obviously, based on just how many times they have to go out there on an hourly basis.
Mr. Palahniuk, last winter, do we know how much we actually spent on snow removal services? Was it anywhere close to that 13,000?
I'm sure we know, but I don't know if anybody here has it immediately available. I don't know that Nathan would have that available, or I don't know that Matt's here, so I can get you that answer, but I don't know it tonight.
I was just curious if
Snow removal is so difficult because it's hard to predict. So wildly depends on what the winter does.
Yeah.
And the timing of that. So we'd be happy to get you the number.
Yeah. But this secures their contract regardless of how. we move forward.
Yeah, so that we know it'll be, for instance, if suddenly we have a snowstorm come up this weekend or whatever, we have somebody that'll do it, so. Heaven forbid, I hope that doesn't happen.
Ready to move on?
If that's not a number you have right now, I can send it to me. I'm
We will,
curious.
we'll send
We'll
that
get it
out.
for you. The next matter is item 12, ordinance O 2021-119, and ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing additional funds for the 2021 contracts for grounds and maintenance and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Palanick.
Madam Mayor, members of council, this is another one of those cleanup things. You get to the end of the year, and because of circumstances you didn't expect, you have to alter a budget. In this case, a little bit rainier, a little bit more of a grass growing season, and we found that we needed an additional $33,570 for our mowing contracts. We expected 25 cuts to be made. That's the way we budgeted. It turned out to be larger than that. So now we have to have additional funds to cover those. And the way this gets funded then is 45% from the general fund, 49% from the stormwater fund, and 6% from the water fund. And those will cover those additional $33,570.
Mr. Palanick, did I read that Western was not able to fulfill the contract, or they did not fulfill the contract?
I would ask Scott. He probably understands that. I can't speak to that
Maybe I
specifically.
read it in a...
There were some parcels that they weren't getting to do, so we farmed those out to another company. Now, they were doing the medians and right-of-ways along the boulevard system, which is a large portion of the contract, but they had some smaller parcels that they weren't keeping up with that we, in effect, had someone else take care of those.
Okay. Is there a ramification to them not completing the contract and us paying a higher rate as a result?
Not at this time, and that's something we'll look at. In that fact, we'll bid this out in the spring, and that's definitely something we've already talked to with finance about some sort of performance bond to make sure this doesn't happen again. So.
Was their rate considerably lower than Norvell's or H?
Yeah, originally their rates were extremely low.
And that's why.
Right, but at the same time, we need to make sure that doesn't happen that way again. So, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
We'll go to item 13. This is ordinance O 2021-120, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Metropolitan Environmental Services to clean approximately 151,000 feet of sanitary sewer and declaring an emergency. No action requested until December 21st.
Mr. Palanick.
Madam Mayor, members of council, as ongoing effort that we've been doing as part of our consent decree, we are always maintaining large amounts of our older sanitary sewer system, which means we video those lines, we do basic cleaning and maintenance, and then sometimes when we realize in those videos that there are more severe, more total maintenance that is required, we have to do something like what we're proposing here, which is cleaning a more physical sort of routing out of 151,000 feet of sanitary sewer, more than just a simple normal cleaning. And then this was bid out, low bid at not to exceed $699,444. It will come from the sewer capital. And basically it's just part of the ongoing maintenance that we're required to do.
Item 14 this evening is Resolution R 2021-52, a resolution approving and adopting the 2020 to 2030 Parks Master Plan, here for first reading.
Mr. Palanick.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I think you're all aware now for much of this year we've seen the Parks Board and the staff working on an update to the new Parks Master Plan that will cover 2020 through 2030. The Parks Board actually recommended approval of the final document on August 26th. There's been a lot of sort of public review of it, and it's been reviewed by council, and now it's finally coming to you for final approval. So, as you know, it kind of takes a multi-pronged approach from short to long term in terms of looking first at immediate needs, then basic improvements, and then more aspirational kinds of things. And we certainly hope to use this as well as we start prioritizing capital improvements in the future, that we'll look to this document particularly to say, it is consistent with this Parks Master Plan. So this is that major important 10-year document that you're being asked to approve. So this is the first reading.
Any comments or questions so far?
I just want to thank staff for all of their hard work on putting this together. I know it's been a long process of collecting a lot of citizen feedback and working with the consultants, and just thank you guys for all your hard work.
Item 15 this evening is ordinance O-2021-121, an ordinance amending section 1226.10 of the Middletown Development Code of the Middletown Codified Ordinances, here for a first reading.
Mr. Palaniuk.
This, of course, you heard quite a bit on earlier. It's the idea of removing the concept of use variance from the ordinance. I would note that one of your speakers earlier, Mr. King, was a little bit facetious in saying, hey, this applicant for the gas station could come forward and simply ask the BZA for a use variance. And unfortunately, he's entirely correct. Our existing ordinance would have that be a possibility. And I think what that points out is that's not the way you do something that important. Good, bad, or indifferent, whether you like that project, don't like that project needs to come before you as the legislative body, not before a Board of Zoning Appeals. And if in fact there are unusual circumstances, like was pointed out maybe in downtown where we want to see more residential, I think that what that points out to us is it is then time to start looking at that specific zone, and maybe we need to alter the text of it because we really have a demand for something and we're not meeting it. So if we have a downtown district, for instance, and we've all said for some time that we have a real preference for and a desire to see more residential included within it, yet it's precluding that from happening, our problem is that ordinance needs to be amended. The problem would not be to grant a use variance, because that's never going to be the right answer. So again, I'm going to be a strong advocate to say it's a really, really bad idea to ever have something called a use variance within a document. And in most states and in most cities, it's outlawed. So I'm hoping that we can find a way to make sure that doesn't happen here either.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions on that topic?
Item 16 is ordinance O-2021-122, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with 5 Star Commercial Roofing Incorporated for the repair of the roof on the ATAD building at the Water Reclamation Facility, here for a first reading.
Mr. Palaniuk.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, we found that the roofs at the Autothermal Aerobic Digester building at the wastewater treatment plant were in pretty serious condition, and the initial belief was we would have to completely replace those roofs. And as Scott and his staff looked into, were there ways that we could do something less than that, they found that there were various vendors that felt that they could fully repair those roofs, still give us a warranty, a significant warranty, without doing complete replacement. So we did that. We bid that out. We received 2 bids. This is the low bidder, 5 Star Commercial Roofing. That's giving us a 20-year warranty on these repairs. And rather than spending several $100,000, the cost is $58,075. So we're recommending it for approval.
And last but not least is number 17, ordinance number O-2021-123, an ordinance determining to proceed with the issuance of bonds in the amount of $16,800,000 and certifying the same to the Board of Elections, here for a first reading.
Mr. Palaniuk.
Madam Mayor, members of council, this is the ordinance that we prefaced in the past, basically that would come to you and that would be the final act to place on the ballot the request for the bonds for the fire stations. It technically now certifies to the Board of Electors the $16,800,000. It establishes that the estimate is $1 million not to exceed, And then it provides specifically in section 4 the actual ballot language that will appear on the May 3rd, 2022. So with this, of course, you are actually approving the ballot language that will appear.
Okay. Do we have any new business items for this evening?
Nothing from staff.
Council? Okay. With that, we technically completing the city council meeting. Do we adjourn that meeting? And how do we do that legally? Yes? Okay.
You need to adjourn this meeting and then convene the state of the city.
Okay, sounds good. So we will adjourn until Tuesday, December 21st, I believe it is, at 5:30 here in council chambers. Until then, blue skies over Middletown. And we will start the state of the city as soon as possible, because I know that meeting lasted a lot longer than we planned, and I thank you for your patience. So let's do 7:56. Let's start this back up, just to keep us, people go in the bathroom, and we'll get everything set up for you. Any other place they'd like to be tonight, huh? Any chance we can make this taller for next year? I mean, I'm short, but we keep missing people. All right. All right, well, I'd like to start the Middletown State of the City for 2021. I anticipate this is going to go just over an hour this evening, somewhere in that realm. So I'd like to give you a little heads up on that. If you're watching it on YouTube, I also want to give you a little tip. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little gear icon. You can speed that up as fast as you want if you're watching it in the future. I like to watch things at about 1.75 myself. So if you're watching this later on, just a little tip. Maybe you learned something new about that. All right, so I'd like to start this evening with just a lesson that I recently learned from another city. So in this other city, the mayor was looking to get more citizen involvement in, council meetings and the like, and wanted to get the citizens more involved in their local government. So one council member suggested that they bring in a hypnotist. You can see where this is going. So everyone thought that that was, a great idea, and so a few weeks later, the town hall was packed. The citizens sat mesmerized as the hypnotist took out a pocket watch and said, "Look into the pocket watch. Look into the pocket watch." The pocket watch swayed back and forth and back and forth. "Now you'll do exactly as I say," said the hypnotist. And suddenly the hypnotist's fingers slipped. Pocket watch slipped down to the floor. "Crap," swore the hypnotist. It took 2 weeks to clean up that town hall. I want to thank Amy Skank, our clerk of council. She had a lot of help putting this together tonight. And also to our hardworking city staff. Many of them provided a lot of important details, and they strive daily to perform the best interests of the citizens and the diverse needs of our city. This year, we were honored to bring back an annual award tradition, the Robert Sonny Hill Jr. Award. So I'd like to introduce Pat Hill and Robbie Hill, who are going to be presenting that tonight. I'm going to give a little background on Sonny Hill first, and then you guys can come on up and we'll present the award if that sounds good. All right, so Sonny Hill was born on February 12th, 1935. He passed on June 21st, 2004. When Martin Luther King Jr. was ordained a minister at the young age of 15, Sonny Hill was already working by his father's side in the plastering business. He was 6 years younger than Dr. King. After graduating from Middletown High School, Sonny watched his friends go off to college. He had 8 brothers and sisters that needed him to work, so he took over the plastering business from his father, who was going blind. Sonny later went to work at Armco as a laborer, continuing his plastering business, married his beautiful wife, Pat, and had 3 sons. Sonny managed to attend Miami University with all of his other commitments. He was the first black maintenance foreman at Armco, the first black to head a department, which was the training department, and he was the only African American to serve on an Armco profit team. Sonny's community affiliations are very lengthy. While working and raising a family, he stayed involved in his church community, his Masonic family, and the community that he loved and represented. He was the chairman for the South End Community Council for 11 years, and in 1993, he soundly defeated 4 opponents for a city commission seat representing the 2nd Ward. At the first meeting of City Commission in 1994, Sonny was selected vice chairman. The following year, he was named chairman of the City Commission. In 2001, Sonny became the first African-American mayor of the city of Middletown, and he served as a council member for 11 years. He always showed loyalty and allegiance to the city and its citizens by his selfless leadership in governing this city. All the while, Sonny was donating drywall finishing services in homes constructed by Habitat for Humanity. He donated baskets of fruit to the elderly at Christmas, and he served or chaired more boards and commissions than most residents know even exist. When you talk about community activists who accomplished a lot in a short lifetime, your first thought is of Sonny Hill. Sonny was able to pull people together from all walks of life to reach a common ground, and he always did this with dignity and respect for his fellow man. Sonny Hill's good deeds will never be forgotten. Pat and Robbie, if you want to come on up this evening. And would you did you want to say some words before we read this? All right, come on. If you want to come to this side, I think maybe that'll help.
Good evening, everyone. I'm having a little trouble with my vision, and that's why I got Robbie here to help me stand up. I want to thank Mayor Condrey and city councilors and citizens of Middletown for giving us this time. After all, this is the mayor's night, and I thank her for giving us some time of that. Sonny loved Middletown. Sonny was a Hamiltonian. And I'm a Middletonian. And he loved the city of Middletown. All he wanted to do was take care of people in Middletown that he was able to. At Christmas time, he gave out the baskets. He'd give out almost 200 baskets every year to the seniors. And at this time, I wanted to present a humanitarian award in honor of Sonny. And our recipient this year is Celeste Didley Davis. I need her resumes. I'd like to have special thanks to Amy for all the work. She helped me get this together. I drove her about crazy, but she helped me a lot, and I want to thank her for that. As you know, Robbie, this is my son, Robbie. I have 3 sons, and Robbie's the oldest of the 3. So he's helping me. I told him, Mother's getting old now, and you're going to have to help me. Before we call Celeste down, I wanted to say a little bit of something about her, and I mean, where's my paper, Robbie? Okay, this is about Celeste. Her education at Miami University. She received a degree from Cornell Law School, Princeton University, consultant for small businesses, president of the NAACP Units number 3194, ordained Reverend minister at New Era Baptist Church, board member of Family Services of Middletown, attorney for private practice in Dayton and Middletown, and the list goes on, all her accomplishments. So I call Celeste my lady lawyer. There's nothing she can't handle for you if you need her. So at this time, Celeste.
I just have a brief disclaimer. I don't know about that lady lawyer, but I think, I guess they say you can never change a person's brain. So I'm actually an adjunct at Miami University, and we work with children here in the community. So I don't practice law anymore, but I thank you. Yes, ma'am. Here we go.
Okay, well, I'd like to read this for you, if you don't mind. So I'll come around on this side, and then we'll present it to you. So this is the City of Middletown citation, the 14th annual Robert Sunnyhill Jr. Humanitarian Award presented to Celeste Didlick Davis. Dr. Celeste Didlick Davis, that is, in memory of Robert Sunnyhill Jr., who served on Middletown City Council for 11 years. Sunny was elected in 1993, soundly defeating 4 opponents for a city commission seat representing the 2nd Ward. At the first meeting of the city commission in 1994, Sunny was selected vice chairman and was named chairman in the next year. In 2001, Sunny became the first African-American mayor of the city of Middletown. Celeste Didlick Davis is being honored and recognized for her hard work, tenacity, and vision, which have greatly contributed to the progress of our community. Celeste Didlick Davis is a detail-oriented self-starter with a passion for helping people to help themselves. She's provided numerous educational and cultural opportunities to youth and others in our community to promote critical thinking and to work toward closing both the academic achievement gap and the socioeconomic gap. A graduate of Middletown High School, Celeste attended Princeton University, Cornell Law School, and Miami University. She serves as the president of Unit 3194, Middletown NAACP, and as an ordained Reverend New Era Baptist Church in Middletown, Ohio. In 1998, Celeste Didlick Davis founded 3R Development Incorporated to empower individuals and families with the necessary tools to regain control of their lives and to become their best while contributing to the success of their families and the community. Celeste has given freely of her time, talent, and treasure to many organizations throughout the community. She has been and continues to be a role model to all who have met her. Celeste Didlick Davis has shown enthusiasm and generosity in all of her endeavors and has freely given of her time and talent beyond what was required or expected. Celeste has earned the respect and admiration of all those with whom she has worked, and her legacy of service will stand as a hallmark for others to emulate. And I'm sure, okay, Shelby would love if you want to, maybe we can move to the left away from that podium.
Okay.
Oh, I'm still over here.
I just want to say thank you, and I'm very honored and humbled because Mr. Hill was a great man.
I just want to say that my family and I, we're so proud of the Robert Sonny Hill Jr. Community Center. I grew up in that very center as a teenager, and my grandchildren call Papa Sonny's house. They say, "Nani, let's go see Papa Sonny's house." We just ride by it, and we just love looking at it. And it's so beautiful, and I want to thank you for all that you do to help us keep it. We really love it. When I have visitors come in, grown-ups, said, "Well, do we get to go see Sonny's building?" So we have to ride down there, and it's right up the street from our church. Tridestone Baptist Church is our church. And I can stand in the church front yard and to look at the center, you know. And Sonny loved that. I thought, he's right here with us all the time. So I just want to thank you that we really, and it's so beautiful. And I know Verlina works there. And I thank all of them that have helped to do it. But it's just great. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
I thought maybe he was going to take over for me. I would be very grateful. All right, in a very different form of recognition, less deeply rooted in the history of our city and more in line with the spirit of Time Magazine's Person of the Year, I would like to submit that the Person of the Year in Middletown, Ohio for the year 2021 is the Middletown Citizen. This year, the Middletown Citizen has stepped up to the plate to pave 40 additional lane miles in our city through a street levy, not just improving the safety of our roads, but beautifying our community in the process. To be clear, city staff helped incredibly to execute in a very amazing financial bonding agreement and paving contract, and your city council, well, we kind of merely just gave you the chance to vote on it. But you, the citizens of Middletown, you're the ones who are giving those precious tax dollars to make this happen. In addition to supporting the paving of our precious city roads, approximately 114 Middletown citizens volunteered and served on boards and commissions to advise city staff and city council. So I know Amy Skank has a lot of work to do. Did you know there were that many? Amy, that's a lot. And she's having to put up with trying to organize and herd the cattle on that one. So these individuals use their personal expertise and knowledge base to help advise city council and staff on a wide variety of topics, from historic preservation to law enforcement to parks and recreation. And if you hadn't heard about these and you're interested in getting involved, I just put up here the way that you can get to the city's website, where you can apply for boards and commissions, and also where you can find some information about what those boards and commissions are up to. Also, it tells you about when they meet, so if you want to listen in on anything. I also received, well, I don't know how many emails I received from citizens. My goal was to count them all up, and I'll tell you what, I didn't get to it. But it was hundreds of emails from citizens this year, providing their thoughts and input regarding the direction of our city. 85 citizen stakeholder comments were made at council meetings this year. So that added up to a total of about 255 minutes, or 4 hours, 15 minutes of potential citizen to council communications on the public record here in our council chambers. In 2021, the Middletown Citizen stepped up. Middletown citizen sparked a fire within him or herself. The Middletown citizen stood taller, rose his or her head up with pride, and made a choice to participate more fully in his or her community and be the change for the brighter future in our city. So for that reason, the 2021 Person of the Year in Middletown is our citizen. And when I took an oath of office to serve the citizens of Middletown, one of the first and strongest sentiments I heard from our own citizens was this overwhelming sentiment that Middletown doesn't keep up with our neighbors, or is notorious for making bad decisions, or doesn't have the resources, or is the forgotten child of the county or state, and is just Middletown. I can't tell you how much I heard that over and over again. I'm sure you all know, you've heard it too. But after my first year as mayor, I was wondering, how long is it going to take for that change to shift? And even at times I question, is it even possible? Can we change that? It seemed kind of like the tokens of deeply rooted depression in many ways across the board. But then came 2021, in the year of the Middletown citizen. And I heard, saw, and felt a renewed passion, communication, discussion, creativity, interest, and best of all, hope from the Middletown citizen. While many others across the country and around the world are allowing themselves to live in the haze of economic and social aftermath from this unimaginable pandemic that's been threatening the world in 2020, continuing to hold their eyes closed and their hands extended, the Middletown citizen picked up his or her proverbial shovel this year and got to work, recognizing that with great challenge comes even greater opportunity. This evening, I want to take you through a brief summary of what our community has accomplished in 2021, the challenges we have in front of us as opportunities to overcome, and a few of the proposed avenues we can take to overcome these challenges together. So let's start off with, we're only as good as we make the next generation. So with that, I would love for the school board president, Mr. Chris Urzo, to give us an update from our city schools. I'll take this so you don't try to take my notes too. And I know we've got this.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you. It's been a long evening. I appreciate your attention and your time. I'm also trying to make an effort to not give too many details, but a lot of details, because it's important to understand our schools. But if there are things I leave out or questions that you have, anything that can value from further explanation, please reach out to me or my colleagues or the superintendent, as our attempt is to listen to you, to understand better what our community needs, and then respond. First off, thank you, Mayor Condrey and Middletown City Council for sticking around and for joining me this evening to speak on behalf of the Board of Education of Middletown City Schools. Thank you, City of Middletown voters and taxpayers. It is through your generosity that our students are afforded important educational opportunities. The responsibility that our district shoulders is to maximize resources to help grow graduates that are equipped with skills to successfully transition into adult life. Graduates who are career and college-ready learners, global citizens, self-aware leaders, collaborators and networkers, effective communicators, critical thinkers, and problem solvers. In speaking this evening, the central objective is to provide information regarding school finances and student achievement. I hope to answer the question of how many resources are available and how these resources are being leveraged to enhance the academic performance of our students. The Board of Education aspires for transparency and for our community to have a straightforward understanding of the health of our public schools. A primary responsibility of the Board of Education is to provide oversight in the usage of public monies to ensure that finite resources have the potential for infinite impact. The financial status of Middletown City Schools is stable. Over the past 8 years, the district has increased its year-end general fund balance. In fiscal year 2014, the cash balance was just $517,000. The district was in a financial emergency. In fiscal year 22, 8 years later, our cash balance, what we have in the bank, is forecasted to be just over $21 million. This was achieved without running a levy. However, in fiscal year 26, this amount is forecasted to decline to just over $15 million due to rising costs and unclear state funding. As a district, we are mindful of the future and the need to be proactive. The past 2 years, the Board of Education, with the guidance of district leaders, have instituted strategic cuts to our budget, and in March of this year approved a reduction package that totaled $2.5 million. which includes a reduction in administrative costs by over $200,000. The availability of the federal COVID relief funds has allowed the district to postpone any reduction in services that would adversely impact our students. Balancing our district budget was accomplished while still investing in academic programs for Middletown students. All elementary schools and a middle school have been renovated to support STEAM learning labs for all kindergarten through 8th grade students. And at our high school, career pathways are being introduced this year to our freshman class, and over the next 3 years will be available to all MHS students. Moreover, district leaders have created a permanent improvement plan that allocates $1.5 million annually to maintain our great facilities. This fund was created without raising taxes. Our financial outlook in the short term is stable. However, there is uncertainty with state funding in the future. Middletown City Schools received approximately $26 million in ESSER, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief 3 funds, to address the impact of COVID-19 on student learning. In early August, a total of 426 stakeholders provided survey feedback to the district on ESSER 3 ideas. To date, the district has allocated funds towards only a select few number of priorities that total to $5 million of the $26 million that is available. These areas include investment in preschool spaces at a new community center or an enhanced Sunny Hill Community Center, guidance support for college for Middletown High School students, professional learning opportunities for staff, and investment in an Aubrey platform to monitor student progress regarding career and college readiness. Enrollment analysis has been conducted at our middle school due to recent overcrowding at the building to determine if there is a need to increase enrollment capacity of that space. The forecasted average enrollment for the middle school through 2032 is 858. The building was designed to accommodate 850 students. As such, district administrators have not prioritized building an addition on at the middle school. The district priority for the remaining funds is centered on our students and their recovery from an inconsistent and challenging past 2 years. Academically and socially, our students need support. The district is currently implementing a recovery plan targeted at accelerating student learning that was stunted during the remote or hybrid learning structure from the 2020-2021 academic year. The plan focuses on opportunities to accelerate learning both during and outside of the school day. The outcome-driven plan will be implemented through July of '24, the deadline of when ESSER $3 expire. The financial health of Middletown City Schools is good. However, without the guarantee of future aid increasing, we'll continue to monitor our expenditures and look for ways to ease the need for deficit spending, which begins this year. We do not foresee the need for new operational monies, no levy, during the current 5-year forecast. The Board of Education is appreciative of the thoughtful and strategic work of our treasurer, Mr. Bertram. Our district staff and students are thankful that we have the support of our community, our taxpayers, and our business leaders, and realize that we need each other to enable our city to reach its full potential. In 2021, Middletown City Schools, under the leadership of our dynamic superintendent, Marlon Stiles, adopted a new strategic vision that will guide the district for the next 6 years. A central feature of the strategic vision is the Passport to Tomorrow. The Passport to Tomorrow focuses on helping prepare all students for post-graduation success by developing an array of competencies. Areas of concentration for students district-wide will be centered on creating career and college-ready learners, global citizens, self-aware leaders, collaborators and networkers, effective communicators, critical thinkers, and problem solvers. We believe that if our students display these attributes as graduates, they'll be ready for any post-secondary experience they choose. To monitor student progress, the district has invested ESSER $3 towards Aubrey, which is a platform that allows all stakeholders in the learning community a single place to go to ensure students are making progress. This includes students, their families, community partners, teachers, administrators, and everyone else who provides support for student success. A structure is being built that will ensure the district vision will yield tangible results for our students, our local economy, and our city. Mr. Stiles and his leadership team are working hard to position our schools and our community for long-term success. To date, the Chamber of Commerce and 10 local businesses and higher education institutions have endorsed the district's Passport to Tomorrow. The district goal is 100. These organizations, in supporting our Passport to Tomorrow, promise that our students will have open doors for them to travel through. Businesses like Worthington Industry, Atrium Medical, and Ohio Living Mount Pleasant will provide Middletown students with mentorships and guaranteed job interviews. They will assist the district in developing qualities and skill sets for employees so our schools can work directly with the business community to ensure our students are prepared for success. Middletown City Schools are evolving as life outside of school is ever changing. An example of this change is evident at Middletown High School. This year, freshmen for the first time can choose a career pathway to explore. Our freshman class this year, and expanding over the next 3 years to include every grade band, are organized in pods. Within these pods, students can choose a concentration, a major, based on their interest and possible future aspirations. Curiosities around engineering, business, coding, or the arts and humanities can be explored by students, and each pod incorporates interdisciplinary, real-world, problem-based learning experiences. Students have the opportunity to change pods each year or have continuity within one pod for their high school career. As graduates, students will have foundational experiences that will be invaluable in choosing college or career objectives. Partnerships with the business community and institutions of higher ed will enable the student experience in each area of concentration to be highly relevant and pertinent to life post-high school graduation. In 2020-2021, the state of Ohio experienced an 8% to 12% decline in student achievement as measured by the state achievement test. Middletown City Schools' results indicate a 15% decline in achievement, which is consistent with state averages for districts who are in a remote or hybrid learning model. 9% of our students within our district did not complete the state test last spring. These students in not taking the test were scored as a 0. During a more typical year, this figure is around 1%. Evidence clearly shows that for Middletown City Schools and every other school district, the COVID-19 pandemic has negatively impacted student achievement. To confront this reality, a multi-layered approach has been deployed to assist in regaining learning losses. Using ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 monies, new staff have been hired to provide support. 8 additional reading tutors, 1 for each elementary building, have been hired. 5 additional ESL, English as a second language tutors, and 5 additional interpreters, bringing the district from 1 interpreter to now 6, have been hired. With the hiring of 7 additional school counselors, every elementary school now has on-site counseling staff. 1 additional counselor has been hired at our middle school, and at Middletown High School, a college and career advisor is now employed. For our youngest students, 7 kindergarten assistants are now on staff. Last year, parents had to make the difficult decision on whether to send their child to preschool, to kindergarten, or to wait. As such, kindergarten and preschool numbers were much lower than typical. Kindergarten assistants are helping our students with letter and number recognition, while aiding our kindergartners in adjusting to formal learning spaces. The intent is to accelerate the time for our students to recover from lost opportunities and experiences. The district is currently planning the next phase of the recovery. Opportunities for students to engage in programming outside of the school day are being planned. During the summer and after school, increased learning opportunities for students will be made available. These activities will be led by our talented district staff. The Board of Education would like to take an opportunity to thank our staff, our teachers, our administrators, and support staff who've gone beyond the expected. Our teachers have been challenged to teach grade-level content while also assisting students who have fallen behind. Students will be perpetually behind unless they're exposed to grade-level content while also focusing on closing learning gaps. The need to individualize one's teaching to 20 or more individual students is imperative, yet also taxing. This challenge has not gone unnoticed, and credit and appreciation are warranted. Another important facet of our district's plan is centered on the social and emotional well-being of students. The district's investment in increasing counseling services is attentive to this demand. Emotional trauma is present within many of our students. For example, at Wildwood Elementary, the school counselor and principal started a grief group for students who have experienced losing a loved one. The group is at capacity with students. At our high school and middle school, student-driven Hope Squads are active in helping students to cope with an array of challenges. At Middletown High School, there are intentional conversations around bullying, and the school recently had a school-wide assembly on the topic. The beginning of the year has been difficult for many. After months of not having the structure that classrooms expect, the transition back into school had been hard for some. Dangerous or destructive student behaviors are not acceptable, and appropriate discipline has been allocated accordingly. However, after a challenging transition back into 5-day full-day learning, our schools have adapted and are gradually returning to a level of normalcy. It is critical that our students feel safe, and Middletown City Schools place great importance on achieving this standard. The district has strong relationships with city police and fire chiefs, and thank them for being here tonight, school resource officers, and a city manager, and appreciate their efforts in helping to make Middletown City Schools safe for our students and staff. These relationships are critical as we work together for the common cause of providing a safe and productive learning environment for our young people. Now, more than ever before, the importance of community support is vital. Investment in positive experiences for our youth go a long way in assisting families and their children, and it's harmonious to the truism that it takes a village to raise a child. The district is excited by the chance to partner with the City of Middletown and local business leaders in expanding youth and family opportunities by expanding our city's community center. Beyond offering increased preschool access, this space has the chance to provide relevant, healthy, and enjoyable experiences to families throughout our city. Young people are growing up in a complicated world with both new opportunities and also challenges. Adult guidance and support will ensure young people will confront these challenges in ways that are healthy, ethical, and will allow them to be productive adults. A modern community center will be a step in the right direction, and Middletown City Schools is excited to be a partner within this project. Choices. As an adult, you have the choice as to where you decide to live and raise a family. Parents have the choice as to where they would like to send their most valued treasure to school. My wife Julie and I have made the decision to live in Middletown and to send our children to Middletown City Schools. We stand by this decision and are extremely proud of Evan and Claire. As parents, we endeavor to be pragmatic and thoughtful and not rely on hope or blind faith or on convenience. As such, our decision to trust this community and its schools is grounded on what we believe to be concrete reasons. As educators, we believe the most important part of any school are its people. People create communities, and Middletown abounds with great people. We are thankful for the many outstanding teachers who are a positive influence on our children. Teachers who care deeply about their students, teachers who are highly skilled and dedicated professionals. Middletown has great teachers. Teachers who inspire, who unite, and who transform Middletown students. We are equally thankful for our children's peers, their friends. Middletown has a richness in people that is reflective of the larger society. The peer relationships Middletown students create serves them well throughout their lifetime. Middletown is the home of unparalleled talent, Olympic champions, mayors, world leaders, esteemed authors, Hall of Famers. And we are excited that our children walk hallways with the next generation of the legendary Middies. Opportunities. Middletown children are afforded rich educational opportunities. Both formal and informal lessons that are taught within our schools are successfully preparing our children for both college and impactful careers. More so, outside of the classroom, our children have been given the chance to become involved with peers and activities that lend to both their enjoyment and social and physical development. Middletown City Schools is lucky to have a dynamic and forward-thinking superintendent. Over the last 5 years, Mr. Saus has changed the energy within our district while encouraging modifications to how we educate our young people. These changes position our students and our community for long-term success. In closing, we Middletown Schools will continue to stay the course and use a strategic vision to guide our actions. We will continue to support our administrators, our teachers, our support staff as they support our children. We will maintain high and relevant expectations. We'll continue to be problem solvers, innovators, and persistent in our work to yield a better and more enriching school experience for our students. We'll continue to welcome feedback and community insight, as our goal is to be transparent, accessible, and collaborative. We'll continue to advocate for, champion, and market the positive stories that our young people and adults work hard to make happen. We will persevere when challenges emerge, and we'll work tirelessly for our community's children. I see on that exit ramp every day, Middletown has enjoyed a bright past, but I do believe we have an even brighter future. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. It's really exciting about everything you guys have going on and the future of the youth in our city. We each play a critical role in our families, our community, our state, and our nation. And only by working together do we create the magic that we all refer to as the American dream and way of life. So as such, it's critical we take ownership of our own areas of responsibility and also kind of stay within our lanes for our families, communities, states, and our nation to thrive. As an elected official, I constantly circle back to the intended role of government. And when making decisions about our city, its precious hard-earned tax dollars and our collective futures. Abraham Lincoln said it so eloquently: the legitimate object of government is to do for a community of people whatever they need to have done, but cannot do at all, or cannot do as well for themselves in their separate and individual capacities. So with that in mind, let's go through a journey together of, I try to kind of bucket things into three major categories of focus the city has had in 2021 and the associated opportunities that we have in these areas in 2022 and beyond. So these three areas of focus that I tried to bucket are mental health, visual beautification, which of course plays into mental health, and economic growth, which, by the way, plays into mental health. So let's start with mental health. The first part about mental health that I want to cover is substance abuse, because I think it really roots itself very, very deeply in our community in many different ways. And we probably have all experienced or been around someone who's had an issue like this. And if not, that's great, but we do have a lot of it going on, right? So Middletown Police Department Special Operations, they were really busy here July through September trying to rid our streets of illegal substances and keep our community safe. If you can see up here, this, first of all, okay, I just Googled Chief Burke gave me these numbers. They collected 1,231.34 grams of fentanyl. I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, have any concept, right, of what that equates to. That picture right there is 1.6 grams. So they collected 1,231.34 grams of fentanyl between July and September 2021. That is incredible. They're doing a great job of getting these substances off of our streets. You can see a lot more statistics up there. 31 search warrants served, 12 guns, 2,604.26 grams of methamphetamine, 2,000 grams of cocaine, over 5,000 grams of marijuana, 45 arrests, $136,090 of cash seized, and 13 vehicles seized for later forfeiture. So they're doing a great job trying to keep us as safe as possible out on the streets. Now let's follow that up with our fire and EMS. So they provide us with some metrics regarding EMS calls for service and fatal overdoses associated with opiate abuse since 2016. Now, as you can see, the metrics are trending down significantly, both for the calls for service and the fatal overdoses from opiates. Let me look. So if you can see up there, I estimated the 2021 numbers, rounded those out based on the other numbers we saw in different months from previous years. So those are estimates, but I anticipate they'll be quite close to that in 2021. But clearly we're trending down in that, which is great, and hopefully those trends will continue. Also here you can see we're on track for a 3-year low for drug and alcohol-related incidents. So that is also exciting news, and hopefully those numbers can continue that way. I also put up here a graph based on the information they gave me about drug and alcohol-related incidents, just to kind of try to show what does that even constitute. It looks like about 54% of those are opiate-related, 14% involve chronic alcoholism, and then meth accounts for 11%. So if you guys kind of give you an idea of what the calls for service are even related to. Now, since our QRT, or Quick Response Team, was stood up in 2016, they have amassed an amazing number of 7,463 interactions, and 18% of those, so 1,367 people, were referred to treatment, with 41% of those actually engaging in treatment and resulting in referrals. So they're doing an incredible job and really helping our city actually address the root causes of this and get people to become contributing members of society and living a purposeful life. So how do we, address mental health? We can look at reducing depression. Increasing community pride is a big one. Strengthening that family nucleus. We're going to talk about that later with our community center. I'm excited for that. And then there's another aspect, is the financial piece. So Middletown participated in Attorney General David Yost's One Ohio settlement with the major distributors of opioid drugs, based on the neglect of distributors to have sufficiently controlled the distribution of those drugs. The settlements are going to go to communities that have experienced devastation because of opioid abuse and deaths. So our city is expected to receive between $821,000 and $1.17 million over the next 18 years, and it's done over 18 years purposefully so that we can control that over time. We have access to also millions more in additional local funds that are to be used in collaboration with our neighboring communities to address the opioid crisis, its current effects, and then future mitigation. This is all part of a larger nationwide, about $26 billion settlements that are being brokered by states' attorney generals. So this is a great opportunity for us to address this problem head on. Now, the other aspect of mental health, and Chief Burke and our One City for Recovery individuals touched on this earlier tonight, is homelessness. Since mid-June, our law enforcement officers have identified approximately 190 homeless individuals within the city of Middletown. Some may say that's a lot, some may say that's a little. They've created numerous large encampments in various woods around our city, some more exposed to the public than others. A lot of citizens and organizations are putting their time and energy and money into trying to help these individuals. How do we solve homelessness? If you have the answer to that, my email is nicolec@cityofmiddletown.org. This issue is not new. It's certainly not unique to Middletown, but those facts don't make it any less real. How have we addressed it? So City Council approved a One City for Recovery pilot program. It was 6 months, initiated in September, intended to serve as a resource and work with our law enforcement officers. Now, the intent of that is to help match those homeless individuals with wraparound services like addiction recovery, housing assistance, acquisition of jobs. And the numbers we heard tonight, they have had 25 direct referrals and 17 connections to services, with 4 individuals actually ending up in housing associated with this pilot program. So they're having success, and they're starting to gain a lot more trust from those homeless individuals, who are now able to engage them a little bit better as a result. The key, though, is the individuals must want the assistance, right, and be willing to attend the services and the meetings. The other issue is time is of the essence. So our law enforcement and One City reps have been there at the right times for many of these individuals, but that's not always going to be the case. When they're ready to go into treatment, we may not be there at that exact time, at that exact moment. So that's another challenge that they run into when they're trying to engage these individuals. I know city staff also moved the needle exchange across town. There's been resolutions to ban addiction service in certain areas. Community-oriented policing, that's a big one. That program has long-term benefit. It's establishing positive relations with our citizens and helping to stop the problems before they begin. And they're having really great success with that COP program, and I'm grateful for our law enforcement officers. So again, we come back to solutions. Very generally, government entities are taking kind of one of 3 routes. 1, provide shelters. Now, those in opposition would say that we're enabling the issue. 2, create ordinances, which essentially outlaws homelessness in one fashion or another. Those in opposition would say that lacks compassion. 3, ignore it. We can allow society and private sector to address it. Those in opposition would say, well, government's failing to take responsibility. Do we continue to hold a town hall once or twice a year to recognize the problem and essentially discuss how there are no good solutions? Is it time we create a more permanent health board or commission? mental health, that is, here in Middletown, that find a way maybe to merge these different routes. This council is going to have to work with city staff to determine which route we want to go and take as a government entity, recognizing there's no obvious or easy solution. And at the end of the day, we need to each know that what we're doing, we do because we believe that we're doing the right thing for the right reasons, understanding it's always going to be a topic of great contention, and we'll never all agree on the right way forward. And most likely, we'll never fully eliminate homelessness in its entirety. Now, the next aspect of mental health I want to cover is the strength of the family nucleus. Now, pores in the membrane of the nucleus allow for passage of molecules in and out. In that same vein, our family nucleus involves not just those who sleep under the same roof as our youth, but the community who surrounds them. So if you do not consider your community to be your family, then I would argue you're without a community. So this evening, I have the honor of introducing Stephen Hightower II. He is the chairman of the Community Center Advisory Committee, the first of its kind to have been appointed jointly by both the school board and city council of Middletown. And collectively, between the schools and the city of Middletown has earmarked $6.1 million for the improvement of a new / improved / we're not entirely 100% sure yet community center, and has asked Butler County for a matching $6 million of the county's Federal American Rescue Plan Act funds to assist with this project. So, Mr. Hightower, would you like to join us here? And I believe we've got a separate slide deck for him, which I, for the life of me, could not get to put in this one. Okay. So I think he's going to switch you up there and put yours up.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the honor to be able to be here with you today and present a project that is very near and dear to my heart and so many. And thank you, Ms. Hill and Mr. Hill, for being here. And I just can feel the spirit of Mayor Hill in the room today, as he's been called out several times. And am I controlling this? Or?
Oops, sorry. Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. The state of our youth is bright. The young people of Middletown are talented, smart, and passionate, and eager to lead our future. They are faced with, as President Orso was talking about earlier, unspeakable challenges: the pandemic, lockdowns, racial and political division, violence, and yes, even death. It is our moral obligation to provide them with the tools and resources necessary to succeed. Kids crave structure and nurturing and need a safe place where they can be themselves and explore all the possibilities and live up to their potential. This is where the idea to invest in the Robert Hill Jr. Community Center was born. For generations, the Community Center has been an anchor for Middletown. Founded by Armco Steel as the Armco Colored Center in 1942 as an effort to recruit black workers from the South. What didn't say was they were actually paid for by docking their checks, so they could support this center. But it has meant so much for so many people over the generations. I grew up there, my grandfather, my father, all have experienced this center, and has meant so much to the entire city. The center has undergone many changes and is now managed by the Community Building Institute, which continues to do amazing work despite the fact that the center is no longer equipped to handle the growing needs of Middletown. So where we are today, as the mayor said, we have been able to raise $2.1 million in ARPA funding, $4 million in ESSER, and $3 million, and have asked the city for an additional $6 million. There's been a $350,000 committed in private investments towards an endowment to continue this effort for generations. A small but mighty group of citizens got together this summer, including Karen Maney, Marie Edwards, Verlena Stewart of CBI, Deanna Shores with the Coalition for the Healthy Middletown, Matt King of Hightowers Petroleum, and wonderful city staff, Susan Coden, our city manager, Randa Bertram. A group got together and said, this is what we need to do and went about putting this together. And today we're at this point where we're ready to move the project forward. So there you see some of our partners again. We went out, so we went out, what is the best? What can we bring back to Middletown? So we visited the LeBron James Foundation in Akron and see the type of services that they did. The Ron Clark Academy is a school that's supported by Oprah Winfrey that is doing amazing work. And we said, those are things that we can bring back to Middletown. Why not? We can do those type of things. So in an unprecedented collaboration, council and the school board formed this committee, and we're at the beginning of the work to put together the vision. And this is going to require visioning from the entire community. We want input from everybody and buy-in. So we're just at the beginning of our process, but these are some of the ideas that we've come up with to begin this great work. So a preschool. The city has plans to put a 5-star preschool in the center that will serve, we all know the importance of early child care, and this is going to be something that can jumpstart our kids' education and make sure that they have the proper tools going into school. A play center. I can imagine that. Our kids in preschool have an opportunity to go to, I want to go jump in those balls, play and be a kid. But think about it, there's not a place like this in Middletown. You have to go to Westchester. You have to go all the way to Cincinnati. And these are things that we can do and layer in sustainability and income streams. This can be rented out over the weekends for birthday parties and things like that. So not only do our kids get to enjoy it in the community, but we can create something that doesn't exist here currently. STEM education and gaming. We all know, our middle schoolers, this is what they love to do, whether it's Pokemon or Minecraft or whatever it is, they're in front of those games. So if we can bring them in and entice them with the video games, now we can teach them technology and coding and different things and put them on a different career path that they may not have otherwise been exposed to. A teen center. All of our teens, what they're craving is somehow to express themselves, somehow to explore different parts, poetry, recording studios, music, arts. We need to be able to provide something for them as an outlet so that they have somewhere else to go as opposed to choosing other paths. And layered upon all of this is mentorship. How do we reach into them, teaching them how to tie a tie, shake a hand, learn different things that we have not, once we attract them there, we now have the opportunity to guide them and watch them with programs, continuing with CBI's Leadership Academy and RISE within that center. One thing that we did learn was that it's not enough just to work with the parents or work with the kids, but we have to solve the problems at home as well. So adding workforce development, getting new partners in that space that can do job training and resume building and credentialing so that our parents can have a way to get new jobs and something that's accessible right there in the community. And again, it should be a place that tells the story of Middletown. There's so many people who walk the halls of this place and so much to be proud of our past that we can use this place to continue to tell those stories. There's been a discussion about a culinary center. So, we're going to have an event space, so we can also incorporate hospitality industry jobs. So, these are high, $50,000, $60,000 jobs where somebody can learn to be a chef or, server, or different things that equip them to go into the workforce. Again, an event center, the community center has been host to every event that I've gone to, from weddings to funerals to everything, and we can make that, enhance that and continue to have space within that center. There's a lot that can be done, and there's a lot of possibilities, and I want to thank everybody for the opportunity. This is something that, again, we're going to continue to get input from from everybody in the community. How do we build this and how do we answer the needs for everybody? So thank you to the council, thank you for the school board, and thank you for the private community for bringing this to life. Thank you.
Now, the committee for the community center has, can you remind me how many individuals? I know we have 2 school board, 14 total. Okay, so 2 school board members, 2 council members, and then 10 appointees within the community that serve on that committee. And as you saw earlier, on the city's website, if you go to boards and commissions, that committee is now on there, and you can go see when they're meeting and go watch the magic that they are making happen, because they're meeting very often. And so the more people can get involved and help share their thoughts and ideas, I'm sure they would welcome them, because it's a tall order that you guys have. So on the topic of empowering our youth, I've got a few successes from across the city this year and some different programs that are going on. We've got the Robert Sonny Hill Junior Leadership Academy. They graduate a second cohort in November, totaling 20 graduates, ready to lead our city's next generation. The Middle School Leadership Academy is a new program launched in March this year. This 10-week asset building program for middle school students focused on building leadership skills through character, self-awareness, entrepreneurship, civic responsibility, future planning, and financial literacy. They recently added a stocks and investment component, which teaches the students about investing, how stocks work, and provides each student $200 to invest. This is made possible by 2 generous donors. They keep in touch with their alumni. To date, cohort number 1, all 10 students are excelling in their respective areas. One of their most recent cohort graduates, Gabriel Brainard, he is now considering a political career as a result of his city council visit. Gabriel, I'm not sure whether to encourage or discourage you from that. I'm just kidding. Council loved meeting with these students. And in surveying the students, not to brag, City Council was found to be the most impactful experience, except cohort number 2, we did drop second, only surpassed by their visit to the state capitol. The Middletown High School RISE After School and Mentoring Program, they've graduated a total of 20 students through their program. The first point of action is taking a genuine interest in the lives, direction, and future of their students. Through the support and encouragement in social and emotional development opportunities, students realize their greatest potential when they are inspired to rise. They've had a total of 20 students participate in the High School Leadership Academy. A few successes here to highlight. They created a t-shirt business known as Pangea, which raised money that was used for a book scholarship. It was awarded this spring to a graduating RISE student. This year, the students sold MIDI tumblers, the funds of which will be used for another scholarship. The students donated supplies and bags, which were packed and donated to Butler County Child Services to benefit students entering the foster system. Each year, every student successfully completed the Young Entrepreneur Pitch Challenge, in which they came up with an idea for a product or service and then recorded themselves pitching the idea as if it were an infomercial. The students also meet countless business owners and leaders in the Middletown community to learn from their experiences and gain insight on what has helped them to become successful. Another program, Midway Baseball. Truly a huge success for their first season. Held a total of 4 camps that ran each month from June to September. They started in that first camp with about 30 participants and ended with over 100 in the last camp. And great news, they are currently in the process of chartering to join the Little League Baseball and will play with set teams while competing against our Little League districts and teams around the area. They are blown away by all the support that they've received across the community and are really grateful for all of that. The private sector, it's also got its pockets of leadership programs for our youth. Just one example of which is the Robert Sonny Hill Leadership Award, or the recipient, Celeste Lick Davis. She told me of one in which 3R Development Inc.'s Legacy Division. They have a program for youth and young adults to sharpen academic, citizenship, and leadership skills, as well as increasing student awareness about the importance of and how to maintain a healthy lifestyle, all the while providing guidance, mentoring and supervision, as well as safe, healthy fun. So they're providing opportunities for youth to experience the arts, specifically professional sports, and other complementary educational pursuits, which are often unavailable to them due to finances, distance, or other issues. Their participants develop leadership skills while actually earning stipends to through their program, which includes regular leadership development meetings. So thank you to all of our community members who focus on our youth and their growth and development. They are truly our future. All right, that was by far the largest bucket, mental health. So we're going to move on to visual beautification. Now, this can include, I've kind of bucketed this one to roads, commercial blighted property, and private property. Again, all of this playing into mental health as well, right? So our roads this year, 40 extra lane miles were paved in 2021 with the street levy, with 90 extra lane miles planned for 2022 associated with that levy. Now remember, this is in addition to our already allocated annual paving that we have budgeted. There's no changes to that. This is all above and beyond that. Our neighborhoods and business districts look cleaner, safer, more inviting. I've seen a lot of people starting to update their houses because all of a sudden the road looks beautiful and oh my gosh, I didn't realize the paint looks so bad on my house all of a sudden. So I think it's really helping across the board with people taking a lot more ownership and pride in their own houses as well. The next part, commercial blighted properties. We've got plenty of these around the city that we're working on. That Vale School is ready for redevelopment. Lincoln School, have you guys seen over there? It is looking great. The demolition is completed. It's ready for redevelopment. I am really excited to see what kind of residential redevelopment success we can find with that property. The AK headquarters and CERTA property, so that former AK research and development facility along Route 4, our ARPA framework here in the city has earmarked a combined $250,000 for the demolition remediation of these properties to make them shovel ready for a developer. The ARPA, so that's American Rescue Plan Act, those are federal funds. We reference those often. They're part of a $350 billion federal stimulus package, if you haven't heard about them already. And Middletown's receiving a total of $18.925 million that will be allocated by 2024 and expended by 2026. As of now, right? Who knows, things are subject to change, but for use associated with the stabilization of our economy as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So in addition to that, we've got that Manchester hotel. We all know well and dear, it's sitting there vacant and not going anywhere right now. So the ARPA framework that we have has earmarked $1.5 million for assistance in making that a viable market rate housing development. We've also got the paperboard facility. That is the facility along Route 4 that caught fire the first day of my mayoral term. That was January 1st, 2020. The city applied to Butler County for $2.83 million of the county's ARPA funds to assist in the demolition or remediation efforts for that land to become shovel ready. The state of Ohio is also working on a program right now to revitalize Ohio's brownfields, which that property would, we assume, qualify for that. For the first time in more than a decade, Ohio's communities will have access to these grant dollars to tackle brownfields that have blighted their communities and hindered development efforts. So that's an exciting program for sure, and I know city staff is participating in discussions and tracking those grants as they become available at the state level. Now, the next aspect of visual beautification is our residential and private properties, the cleanup of all of those. The city created a new development services department this year. It's focusing on assisting residents and businesses directly through the required permitting processes for home or business projects like fencing, signage, additions, also opening new businesses, home building construction, and historic property review process, etc. They are the go-to department now for property owners wishing to improve their real estate. So code enforcement also moved to this new department and away from the police department. I think in large part this is going to help enable these connections with property owners with the appropriate city resources to actually move forward on the progress of their properties. We've also earmarked $145,000 of ARPA funds for community cleanup efforts, $187,500 of ARPA funds earmarked for demolition of blighted homes in Oakland neighborhood, and $353,200 to assist with new builds in that Oakland neighborhood. Now, a key aspect to private property improvement across the board is this citywide momentum, and I think that's where we're going with a lot of this. That road paving is critical to it. We've got Central Avenue that's getting completely revamped this year. That's going to create a lot of momentum. The Lincoln School demolition, obviously, we can now see a lot of potential in that area. Paperboard, the AK property cleanups along Route 4, also a large part of that momentum that's going to assist in our private property visual improvements as well. As the environment becomes something to take pride in, our level of pride increases. I know when my neighbor decides to cut his grass, all of a sudden, I thought my grass was looking so good. He cuts his grass, I'm like, well, I clearly need to cut my grass again, right? So it's a momentum thing, and the more we get it going, the more it's going to keep going. I look forward to the great success our citizens and business owners, and thus the entire city, are going to have in the cleanup of private property here in Middletown in 2022. Now, the last bucket I want to cover is economic growth, which, gosh, it plays right into that mental health again, doesn't it? Now, in the state of Ohio, our city's budgets are largely contingent on income tax base of its citizens. So I kind of want to just bring that to light, because I don't know if a lot of people realize how our budgets function. And Ohio is different than other states. So in Ohio, we focus on that income tax. Property tax mostly goes to the county, sales tax the state. So Middletown's economic development focus is largely on increasing that income tax base for our city. So it accounts for 48% of our general fund budget for 2022. I don't think, oh, okay, yeah. I can't remember if I put a pie chart in or not. All right, so these income tax, these are the changes over the last 5 years. Middletown saw a 7.6% decrease in income tax in 2022, you can see. Now, we almost all can assume that is from COVID, right? Pandemic, there's no question about that. But now if you look, we have budgeted for a 14.5% increase from 2020. Up there, I reference it to 2019 because I really don't like referencing 2020 numbers in comparison to things. So those numbers I put up there are percentage increases from 2019, which is a little bit easier to look at. So thus, using 2019 as a comparison, the city anticipates a 5.8% increase in our income tax base in 2022 as compared to that 2019. Now, comparatively, we saw a 5.2% increase from 2018 to 2019. So we anticipate our rate of increase to be growing slightly year over year when it comes to our income tax base. Now, how do we increase this to a more impactful number? Of course, we want to make that percentage greater, right? We can establish or renovate our housing stock. So these efforts are happening across the city. The redevelopment of the town mall into a more town center, opening the area up with apartments, condos, a hotel, restaurants, green space, entertainment. In fact, I think I've got that right here for you. Yep. Sports, that's one of the major projects going on right now that the city staff is working with Warren County on. The owners of the Town Mall Galleria did sign a contract with K1 Speed Electric Go-Kart Company to bring indoor racing to the complex. And Warren County has earmarked ARPA funds to assist with making a set of ice hockey sheets economically feasible for that site. Now, as K1 continues its steps to place their facility at the town mall, the next step is to find other developers for apartments, condos, hotel, and sports entertainment pieces. So the city contracted with Rinka. You can see these are the conceptual designs for that hotel, or for that property at the town mall. The concept being, if we have these conceptual designs, now developers can start picturing what this whole facility might look like. So they can come in their parts and pieces and agree to redevelop parts and pieces of that. The other aspect we can do, to increase our income tax bases is increase that quality of life, because we can then draw in people who are coming from higher income levels, higher jobs, and they're going to help increase that income tax level as well. So that town mall redevelopment definitely has the potential to increase the quality of life out by the interstate for Middletown citizens. And of course, the interstate's not that far from the rest of the city. We've also completed the extension of our Great Miami Riverway Bike Trail to Franklin, a huge quality of life aspect, and we're looking to do the same to Hamilton. We're looking to improve the city parks. So that Parks Master Plan was completed in this year. We're looking to finalize that here with a vote at the next council meeting. Also, creating a community center that's going to serve the entire city in a wide variety of ways is also a huge quality of life aspect that's going to increase that income tax basis over time. Ensuring the critical services of our city, such as fire and EMS response, that they're accessible with reasonable timeframes is also critical when trying to attract families and businesses who want to root themselves in Middletown. So a lack of a capital project priority list and focus on capital improvements in the past has put us in this situation right now where all of our fire stations are in critical need of replacement. Our city's development over time has also created a need for shifting the locations of those fire stations so that our response times can be more conducive to where the population currently exists in Middletown. I know our staff has investigated the major external funding sources that would be available to our city at this time and have determined that none of those sources will allow us to directly fund the fire stations from any means within our own budget, which is not going to allow for creating all new fire stations. So as such, in May, the citizens of Middletown will be asked via ballot if they wish to fund new fire stations through a 30-year levy, which hopefully will be shorter as financially possible through financing. The ballot issue is going to specifically read the following. Shall bonds be issued by the City of Middletown for the purpose of constructing fire facilities, furnishing and equipping the same, improving the sites thereof, and acquiring interests in land as necessary in connection therewith in the principal amount of $16.8 million to be repaid annually over a maximum period of 30 years, and an annual levy of property taxes be made outside the 10 mil limitation estimated by the county auditor to average over the repayment period of the bond issue 1 mils for each $1 of tax valuation, which amounts to 10 cents for each $100 of tax valuation. Commencing in 2022, first due in calendar year 2023, to pay the annual debt charges on the bonds and to pay debt charges on any notes issued in anticipation of these bonds. So voters are going to have one of two options. Now, this is pending council official approval at the next meeting, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get there. They'll either vote for the bond issue or against the bond issue. So I wanted to make sure everybody is aware that that is coming, likely to be on the ballot coming in May. Another thing we can do for economic development is to attract companies with higher paying jobs. So that would be like your research and development, your engineering. In fact, looking at that former AK R&D facility, what a wonderful tribute would that be to the history of Middletown and to those who have worked at the AK Research and Development facility in the past to find another company interested in placing an R&D facility there. The other kind of businesses we can attract are corporate jobs, sales, medical, pharmaceutical. I'm sure economic development has other areas of focus they're looking at when it comes to that. A few major announcements in the 2021 year in economic development included Phoenix Metals. So they have 14 locations across the United States. They're constructing a new 156,000 square foot manufacturing facility in the Made Industrial Park. It's going to allow them to keep their 52 employees that they currently have and hire an additional 20. Access Envelope moved from Hamilton to Middletown. The company has 6 full-time employees and hopes to add 12 more. So they're going to increase their payroll by $410,000 by December 31st, 2024. And employment giants DHL and Cintas moved into the 75 Logistics Center in Middletown as well. So all of that playing into that increased income tax basis in our city that's going to let us do a lot more with things that we'd really like to do. Economic development also established the Middletown Small Business Alliance. It'll serve the unique and immediate needs of small businesses in Middletown by providing resources, training, and networking opportunities for businesses with 35 employees or fewer. I was able, we'll just stop on that part. I want to kind of keep us on a good time. So if you want to join that Small Business Alliance, you can go to choosemiddletownoh.org to look for that. Ooh, that text turned out quite small. Oh. But it's nice and big up there. All right, good. These are a lot of different city communications areas that the city staff would like you. If you're looking at what information is available to you as a citizen of Middletown, here's where they recommend going. That city website has got a lot of stuff on it. If you can't find it on that city website, then I would argue it probably doesn't exist anywhere. So it's somewhere in there. Also, economic development, their website is choosemiddletownoh.org. The paving information, if you want to find information about that levy, it's middletownstreetlevy.com. The fire station information, definitely a critical one for our citizens this year, go to middletownfirestations.com. And then if you want to follow what's going on in the city on a regular basis, those are all of the different social media platforms you can follow. The city itself has quite a few. Economic development has its own as well, as does the police department. So hopefully that kind of gives you a good overview of where you can go to just follow things. And you can always email me, Nicole C. at cityofmiddletown.org. Can't guarantee I'm going to have the answer, but I can sure try to figure it out for you. So in closing, we could take the challenges facing our city and replace Middletown with the name of pretty much any other city in our country and have a ready-made state of the city for them. Our challenges really aren't unique to Middletown at all. The difference lies in how we perceive the challenges and how we're going to choose to overcome them. Your continued engagement and attendance at city council meetings, asking the tough questions, and giving support when founded, providing your input, they're encouraged. We start the new year with 2 new members on council and 3 existing members who want to engage you. We want to hear your dreams and desires for Middletown. I look forward to standing up here at the end of 2022 and again giving credit to the citizen of Middletown. In the meantime, I'm going to do my best to keep hypnotists from dropping pocket watches here in council chambers. So thank you guys for the opportunity to serve as your mayor. I promise to continue to do the right things for the right reasons, and wish you a fulfilling holiday season and new year.